Jigs and Bigs is proud to announce we're being supported by Old Glory Outdoors. They're a veteran-owned company that carries fishing and hunting gear. Plus, they're highly active in supporting veteran organizations and charities. Old Glory is an authorized dealer of favorite rods, FX rods, Guggen baits, X-Zone lures, Sixth Sense, and many more. There's a brick-and-mortar store located in East Brookfield, Massachusetts, but you can also order online at oldgloryoutdoors.com. They ship anywhere in the lower 48 states or order online and pick up at the store. When you order, use the promo code JIGS and Bigs and you'll save 10% off your complete order. Plus, you'll help support the show. Make sure to check out the apparel line called OGO Gear while you're there. Old Glory Outdoors believes in the slogan "Start 'em young" to keep kids away from screens and enjoying nature. They've got a full array of live bait too. Check out oldgloryoutdoors.com and use the promo code JIGS and Bigs. Save some money and gear up now. What's up, everybody? Jigs and Bigs for this Tuesday morning for you. I'm Bobby Roast Beef, and I'm joined by Sean the Fisherman. We're here. We've got lots to talk about. It's fall. You know, we've been saying for a while now the fishing has been slowing down for us, but from what I've heard, some of you guys have been out there and doing just fine. No problems whatsoever. I got out and did a little bit of fishing. I know Sean did as well. We'll get into all that. Sean, how are you this morning, dude?
I feel like crap, but I am ready to record. As we talked about this, before we started recording, and because you were texting me at like midnight last night. I was up pretty late doing homework last night, so I am.
Oh yeah.
I am slow speed Sean today, but it's all right. I'm pounding coffee. I'm ready to go. I'm always ready to talk fishing. So let's do this, man.
This will be
pumped.
good.
Let's go.
I got up really early. Like I didn't go to bed too late last night. Shortly after you and I had wrapped up talking, I was out, and I got up pretty early for me. I usually like to sleep until about 7 or 8 if I don't have to get up necessarily for anything specific. And I was up at 5 a.m. today, just raring to go. I was like, today this would be a great day to go fishing. If I'm like, it's just rainy and cold and I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. So let's just stay in and drink coffee. So I'm highly caffeinated right now.
Good. You can be caffeinated for the both of us. I'm trying to get there just to level out.
I hear you. I hear you. Just get the shakes to go somewhere. So you had a situation involving a Roomba, didn't you? And duct taping a knife on that son of a bitch?
Look, you know what? If we're just going to veer off course right at the beginning of the show.
Why not?
All right, so
it's the week of Thanksgiving. Everything's off course.
So everyone that's around us knows, all of our friends and a lot of our listeners and the extended family know that we're big Jerky Boy aficionados. And with everything that's been going on this year, with concerts being canceled, with you name it being canceled, I don't know about you, but I know I've actually watched, I think, 3 streaming concerts, which obviously it's not even close to the same. But
it's a totally different animal. Still cool, but different.
Yeah, 2 of them were a band I love and I try to see all the time, which was, I think I mentioned a couple podcasts ago, I'm a big Clutch guy. So Clutch did their online stuff and I got those. And I got another one too. I can't remember what it was. Whatever. But in that vein, the first Jerky Boys comedy prank call album is being released for the first time in 25 years, I think they said.
Oh, yeah. Basically, when caller ID became commonplace, that whole platform had to disappear, and from the way it sounds, I think they figured a way to make it work.
Yeah, it just seems to be spaced out a little more. So Johnny Brennan is the last remaining Jerky Boy because the other guy, I guess they had a falling out, correct? They do things on their own. So he's doing a streaming event on Black Friday. Normally I have a little get together at my house on Black Friday. Well, that ain't happening this year. So I will be sitting down with a bag of Cheetos.
Yeah.
and laughing on Black Friday. And the reference you just made was they released that phone call.
Yep.
One of their phone calls. So if anybody is listening to the Jerky Boys, which I mean, we still do. I mean, if we're out fishing, we'll I think it's been a couple times where I've said, hey, have you heard this call? And you've been like, no, I haven't heard that call. Because they put out a couple of underground releases.
Some sleepers.
Between between 96 or something and 2010 or 2012, and they're out there. The Mickey Mouse call is fantastic. Of course,
the Mickey Mouse call is so good.
It's where we're the origin of nibblers. Yeah. So
nibblers.
Okay, you got to watch out for that guy. He's a real nibbler. Oh. So there we go. We are not being paid to promote the Jerky Boys, but we're going to do it, by God.
We're not. I'll say this much: we're not the only fishing podcast that digs on their comedy. I think we're in good company with that. So that's all well and good. How was your fishing this week? And I think your fishing was a little bit more lively than mine was. I had good company, and it was a whole lot of fun. But yeah, not anything crazy on my end. How did you do?
Well, I also had good company. I was lucky enough, with hunting, Nelson and a few other people that I generally fish with are out in the tree stands on Saturdays. And with Massachusetts still holding on to one blue law of no hunting on Sunday, which I'm not even a hunter, and I think it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah, I kind of scheduled it, said, hey, look, based on what I have for homework, Nelson and Cousin John, are you guys, available? And they both were. So we went out and checked out that place where I caught the mammoth Kraken pike a couple weeks ago. And I didn't really have high expectations. Like I said, I've been sitting on bass number 599 for forever now. Yeah. So I was literally going out. No, I was going out there pretty relaxed and just hoping for a nibbler because that was it.
That'll do it.
My expectations were exceeded. Nelson's expectations were exceeded.
He had a great day.
Yes. And John caught a nibbler, and I'll just throw this out right now. After the beatings he has delivered to me this year, I don't feel sad for him whatsoever. I smiled when I bought him chips last night and placated him. That felt good. There's only been I think 2 times this year out of the 10 or 15 times we've been out where I've been purchasing the chips.
Yeah.
So I took pleasure and pride in buying those chips.
That's awesome. No, that is very awesome. I almost considered throwing down one of those like platforms once I went out with Delirious to throw that idea out there. I was like, well, okay, I'll tell you what, first fish, that person buys lunch or whatever. And I was like, you know what? It's cold. I think we might end up walking away skunked. So let's not.
And man, I honestly think you found your groove without getting super competitive with fishing.
Yes.
Roll with it.
Right now.
I'm not you. Yeah, exactly. Roll with it. You're having fun and do it. Don't involve competition in it because you don't know which way it's going to go. And I hope you've noticed I've been extremely supportive of that. Like I've been busting your balls about getting out there and being competitive. Just do your thing, man. You're rolling with it. Roll with it.
That's the name of the game.
Right now, it's not for you. Down the road, it might be. It's all good.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's it. It's all about it's a for now situation. So we'll see. But this overall week has been pretty killer for you and I have had stuff going on. We've been having a good time with things. The last episode with Nelson, people have been giving great feedback with, so that's really awesome. Had a really good interview that's coming up later this show, recorded that, and this all stemmed from a little video about kayak mods, specifically the same model kayak that I use, the Ascend 128T. And so that you have coming up a little bit later on, but we have like a couple of big things. One of our former guests, Megan Long, just got on the pro staff for Bill Lewis Rattle Traps.
I saw that, and I like that. Yeah, for my experience with rattle traps, I'm a big lipless guy.
Oh yeah.
You know what my favorite rattle trap to use, and you're gonna laugh, but in Minnesota, I throw like 3 3/4 ounces and 1 ounces. I throw huge rattle traps.
Wow, those are freaking huge.
Yeah, and I'll drag them down to like 10 feet, and the pike and the walleye. Well, not the walleye because I only cut the walleye on that one spinnerbait, but the pike seem to enjoy them. And surprisingly, I've caught a number of like 2-pound range to 3-pound range largemouth on those things. Yeah, they're enormous. They're the size of a coffee cup. They're huge.
I'll bet you with that kind of weight at the end of the line, you're really feeling the vibration quite a bit more. Like there's a little bit more heft with the way it moves around. I can make the assumption that that's the case, right?
It's kind of a loaded question because it depends on the rod you're using. So I use a medium
that's
heavy.
That's true too. Yeah.
I use I think we mentioned once in the show, I use a 7-foot medium heavy Shimano muskie rod.
Yep.
And the whole point of like with rod, when people, when I talk about and how I frame thinking about medium heavy and fast action tips and the softer tips.
Yeah.
Basically when you have a softer tip, so if you have a medium, right?
Yep.
That's like a crankbait rod because if you put a crankbait on a faster tip rod, that's when you're shaking. That's when you're going, oh, as it comes in. When you soften the tip, it dulls that. And then it goes from, all right, a steady pull, and then you feel that mouse trap going off when a fish inhales it. And that's why, that's, to my understanding, that's why rattle traps are called rattle traps, because it feels like a mouse trap going off. You've got that steady motion, and I felt it a million times, and you feel whoop, whoop, and I'm making this motion of, like my hand is a fish's mouth.
It's like the mouth grabbing it and stopping
boom, boom,
it.
And I'm pulling, and then then the rattling stops and you got a fish on. But that's, I mean, no, if you get the right tapered rod, no, you're not going to feel it.
Yeah. Huh.
You know what I mean?
I kind of a little flattered by this. Megan had actually sent me the email she was submitting. She was like, just check this out and make sure it's okay. And I got to tell you, that girl is a absolute class act about sponsorships, promotions, anything like that. Like, absolute class act. I told her, my response back to her was basically, listen, I wish this is how people who want to build their, social media, their fishing, pages and things and partner with companies. I wish this is how they would represent themselves. I was like, we're a podcast, and there's not a week that goes by where I don't get multiple emails from somebody that sending me something that's clearly copied and pasted that was probably sent to every single major distributor of any kind of product at all. They get sent to us looking for free stuff, and they will legitimately just say, could you send me some free stuff? I'll represent you on my social media. And and I'll actually, I got a lot of free time. So I will go and look at the accounts, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, you guys are totally missing a boat. You're doing it wrong. It doesn't work like this, and I usually my response is like, we're a podcast. Like, we don't have product to give you. I'm like, even if that was the case, like, I don't even want to get into any of that stuff, but like, there's a right way to do these things. I think she nailed it, like she did a great job. So I'm hoping that she'll be throwing a promo code out there sometime soon, and we can all stock up on some Bill Lewis rattle traps. Nice. And that'd be great. That'd be awesome. So big things going on for her. Also, I had gone out fishing with Delirious. And which was great because we met at Old Glory, and I had his jig kit to give him from winning last giveaway. And I gave him his jig kit. He says he was blown away with it. He's like, this looks pretty freaking awesome, man. He's like, I'm psyched. And I don't think he throws very many jigs per se, but he's exactly the kind of angler, like that person that doesn't throw jigs all the time, that maybe wants to get a little comfortable. This is like perfect for them. It gives you pretty much something in every single possible like scenario that at least we run into that you can really kind of play with. So I think this will be really good for him. But one of the things that I picked up that I had never used was I picked up a couple of chatterbaits while I was at OGO. And I picked up, these are 1/2 ounce football head jig chatterbaits from Z-Man. And I have never seen a football head jig head. And it's one of those where it's two components. Like, it's not a football head jig where it's attached. It's got like a swivel where the hook is free. So I used a small 2.5-inch Kayak on the back. And I mean, the action with this thing was out of this world. But that was kind of the reason why I asked about the rattle traps is I normally, max I throw for a chatterbait is usually about 3/8. These were 1/2 ounce. And I noticed that they were moving like quite a bit more. I felt like there was a little bit more like oomph. And this was on exactly like the same rod and everything that I normally would throw a chatterbait on, a 7-foot medium heavy. So that's why I was curious about that. But
with chatterbaits for me, I actually over the past year, for one reason, I switched to 1/2 ounce. I was using them occasionally. I think I had 3/8 and 1/2. And I moved to a 1/2 because with deeper water, it allows it to get deeper into the water column. That's it. Those chatterbaits ride really high. Well, and in the water column, so
it's funny
they'll
say
sink
that.
more.
I was, I usually, my go-to weight is 3/8. I try to go as light as I generally can. I've used some quarters before. And I noticed, especially with the quarter, but quite often with the 3/8, that unless I'm like moving at a snail's pace with that reel, it will ride right up and get right up to the top of the water the closer that it gets to me. And I try to avoid that. And that's the one thing that I did notice with this half ounce is it definitely stayed in the strike zone where I wanted it much easier. So that might be something to look into as well. But I was floored. I did hook like a 12, 13 inch pickerel. It was like perfect scenario when you catch a pickerel. I'm like, got the fight, get him right to the bank, and he shakes right off at the bank. I was like, perfect. I don't have to touch a slimy son of a bitch. We're good to go. But that was the only bite we had all day. But we had a great time. We went to a spot recommended by Joe. And it was a whole lot of fun. We had a great time, good conversation, and we did a group chat on I think it was on Instagram that we did this with Largemouth Sass, Megan Long, and she had just finished a tournament with Joe. She does a lot of tournaments with him, and so we had called and just to kind of say hello and stuff. So always networking, you always got to network and do that whole thing. So it's all good. So it was a really, really, really good weekend overall.
Yep.
Awesome.
With my trip, we went to that small body of water, John and Nelson and myself. It's not, like I said, it's a small water body. And when we got on there, the three of us, there was 3 kayaks and a bass buggy already out there. And I'm like, oh shit. All right. So we're going to kind of stay away from this end of the place. We went to the other end and John and I went to the other end. And then as we were getting in, one of the kayakers was leaving, so I had a chance to kind of paddle up to him, introduce myself, throw him a Jigs and Big sticker.
Sweet.
And his name was Matt. I didn't get his last name. Apologies, Matt, if you're listening to the podcast. Nice meeting you. We did all right. Matt had said he caught 3 bass, so I'm like, okay, that's good. At least if there's a bite on. At least
they're biting, yeah.
When John and I went to the one end of this body of water, it's one of those weird places where I'm not going to say weird, because it's not super unusual. But you know how I mentioned that generally the northwest corner of a lake is always the warmest in the northern hemisphere because it's got the most daylight on it for the hours of the winter.
Yeah.
Well, this is a place that has a stream coming in at the northwest corner, so that's when it flips.
Oh,
because you've got running water coming in.
Yeah.
I've seen numerous bodies of water. That's why I think the term weird is it's not so unusual. There's plenty of them out there where a stream is coming in from the northwest and there's your coldest point.
Yeah.
Because you got running water pouring in and then it stops moving, warms up. And by the time you get to the south end, then you've got a nice warm body of water.
Yeah.
But we went up there, we didn't get any hits. And I saw the bass buggy come up to that end. And I said, okay, well, at least one boat is gone. And we went back to the other end and there's a little bit of a passage in between the two areas. Mm-hmm. So we couldn't see that other end. And there was Nelson and nobody else. Everybody else had cleared off. So I'm like, okay, cool. This place is ours now. And, I think I was on that side for, I don't know, 2-3 minutes. And I get a text from Nelson and he sends me 2 pictures. One's him holding a largemouth and the other is a largemouth on the ruler. And it was 20 3/4.
Yeah, so that's no joke.
So I gave Nelson a taste of his own medicine and loudly as I could yelled, "Fuck you!" across the lake, which he thought was funny.
That's awesome.
So that was good. So as I proceeded over towards him, I talked with him. He had as I proceeded towards him, there's a beaver lodge. Every Massachusetts body of water has a stupid beaver lodge on it at this point. And I threw a jig into the middle of it, and I got thumped. And I said, "Well, that was weird. Let's see if there's anything else in there." And I got my biggest of the day, which was 16 1/4, which I was fine with. Again, a jig and cold water, good go-to. And I proceeded down the bank, and then I met up with Nelson, started talking with him, got within earshot, and said, "Well, what are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm actually running a lipped crankbait deep." And I said, "Wow, that's definitely different for this time of year." And he was on 3 large, and obviously the 20 was the big one. I think he had a couple of 13s after that, and then the pickerel wasn't very big. So I proceeded around the banks, and when he and I had talked about the crankbait, I said, "Well, I'll try a lipless."
Yip.
So I threw a lipless on first cast, got like a 15-incher. Okay, good for
Not
me.
Bad.
Yeah,
upsize. That's cool.
Yeah, and I was fine with that. And then I didn't get any more hits for 5-10 casts. And I said, well, I'll go back to the jig and see if they're still interested in that. And I worked my way around this. I'm not even going to say the shoreline. I was more toward the center of the lake.
Yep.
But I was watching my fish finder, and you know me. I don't have a complex fish finder.
No.
I look at my fish finder for temperature and depth.
Yep.
And any structure. If I see a fish, I'm not tracking that one fish down. I'm not going to sit on top of a fish. I'm looking for similarities. Now, if I see a group of fish in one place and then I go around the lake and don't find any more, I might come back to that. But I don't focus on one fish. I'm looking for a broader picture of what's happening underwater. So what I discovered throughout the course of that 3 hours we were on the water was the weeds are dead for the most part.
Yep.
And there was a drop off from 4 or 5 feet to 7 to 8. And that's where the weeds kind of ended. Mm-hmm. And I was letting my jig get down to the weeds, pulling it through once. I did get, I'd say, half of them, continuing another conversation you and I always have. About half of those hits were on the drop. But the other half were I would let it get down to the bottom, give it one hop, and usually something would inhale it. But it was a real soft hit.
Yeah.
Really, really, really soft. So I had to pay attention. And I straightened it out by the end of the 3 hours. But I think initially doing this little tactic, I missed 6 fish, quick. I mean, they could have been pickerel. They could have been pickerel just grabbing the jig trailer and swimming around with it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I landed most of my fish. So I ended up finishing the day with 7 largemouth and a pickerel, which
not bad.
Broke my 600. So I'm at 606, and I may have one more shot left in me. And I have this in my notes, so I've got to pump this. So real quick, I'm sure I'll be out in December at least once, preferably open water. But if I have to ice fish, I will, because we got the Chronic Trips tournament coming up. So if you haven't registered for that, get out there. Fun stuff. It is colder, and Midwest Folk, again, I opened it up to you guys because I've made sure to throw in walleye and its relatives. So walleye, sauger, and saugeye. And then I opened up the pike category to make sure that northern pike, muskie, and tiger muskies were all in there.
All included.
There's awesome. my chronic trips plug. Let me pull that off the list. Boom, done. And the one other thing I want to mention about yesterday.
Yep.
And this might spawn a conversation because I want your input on it. So the water temperature yesterday was a brisk 40 to 41 degrees. Okay.
Oh, that's pretty chilly.
And I know you and I both kind of keep an eye on the Western Mass Fishing Facebook page.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we see all that stuff. And I noticed someone posted, was it last week, maybe a week before? And I apologize, I didn't get their name. Like I said, I kind of peruse that. I'm not, what am I determined a lurker on Facebook? I just kind of go through stuff, right? I don't post a lot of, so I look and don't post. Am I a lurker?
I would say that probably qualifies you as a lurker,
Yeah. So that's pretty metal. I'll accept my lurker label. I'm good with that. So, do we need to make lurker t-shirts? I'm sure somebody already has. Lurker
hunt.
So lurker hunt. There you go. So, I had noticed that, someone had posted, they were fishing, and someone had driven by. Somebody felt the need to throw their 2 cents at a fisherman. They were fishing, and someone drove by and yelled, "It's too cold to catch anything." Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to unpack with that one statement.
Yeah, there is.
Okay. So the Facebooker's response was, he goes, "I ignored the guy, and look what I caught." And I think it was his personal best smallmouth.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know why there is such a general mass populace feeling that as soon as it's too cold for humans to be comfortable out on the water, the fish are going to stop biting.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting from people is, it's too cold to fish. Okay. So you're telling me that at some point let's just use, I'm not even going to assume that folks that are saying this know anything about fall turnover, but let's say the fall turnover happens and the fish are just not eating anymore. Is that it? Is that the general feeling out there? Like the fish don't eat, but then you can go
spring.
Yeah, but then you can go out and catch them ice fishing. Yeah. So how does that make any sense? They don't. They slow down, but they can still be caught. And there are windows. One of the windows that I love to death in this time of year, okay, is the end of the day, the last hour before it gets dark.
Yeah, so like 3 p.m.
3 p.m. to 4:30.
Yeah,
really 3 p.m. to 4:30. So like when I go out to, if I'm going to make the drive out to Cape Cod, like I'll leave at 8 or 9 in the morning, and I will be so leisurely about it because I know I am not getting any sort of action till afternoon. If it's a warm day, if it's
you're
a
not
cold
getting
day,
that morning bite. It's not. Yeah. You're not up against that. You're not trying to beat the sun. Yeah.
Exactly. So the water temp, obviously, if anybody fell in the water yesterday, we were dead. Like that's cold.
That's
the
bad,
41 to 40, 41. That's cold. I think I've only caught largemouth in New England, like at one temperature colder. I know I caught a largemouth at 38 once, but we had a great day yesterday. In 3 hours, we caught, 11 fish. Well, 8. what am I doing here? Math, 8, 12, 13 fish between the three of us in 3 hours.
And then when you figure the bites of what you missed too, like that's the other thing. Like you got to consider all those potential bites, because that says a lot about the activity, of what's going on in the water. Like they still got to eat.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to rip on anyone for their knowledge. What I'm trying is to spread more knowledge that, hey, this is a fallacy. Like you can go out if there's open water and you know what you're doing. You can go out and catch fish. How many recreational fishermen that would have went out yesterday had the day that like I did. So let's even had the day Nelson did. Say I caught 3 large. Nobody. And Nelson did that yesterday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like yesterday was brutal, raw. Thankfully, the wind wasn't so bad.
No.
But yeah, he caught a huge fish and had a steady day. I had a steady day with no huge fish. John bought a bag of chips.
Yeah. Hey, good, John. Good job.
Yep. So
what kind of chips were they? Were they really good ones?
Oh, dude, they were the Pocky. But they were the jalapeno ones. Oh,
Very
they're
nice.
So good.
Very nice.
Yeah, what are they? They're like jalapeno limes.
Yeah,
that's what they are. No, are they jalapeno limes?
I think they are.
I buy them all the time. I buy the late July ones, and I buy those, and they're great. The Pocky ones are really good. They're definitely a different jalapeno strength than the other ones. So.
Oh yeah. The other ones are a little bit more of a kick in the pants.
Yeah, they're good. So there you go. There's my, I don't know. I don't want to be lecturing or rant and raving, but yeah, it's a fallacy. Like, so that person who drove by and yelled at the Facebooker about not catching any fish couldn't be more wrong.
No, absolutely.
It doesn't make any.
I'm a little curious what your theory is with cold water fish. Like, where do you stand, Sean, on your theory as to what they will bite and the reasons for it? I have my theory, and I'm not. Actually, should I throw mine out there first and see if you debunk it?
I don't know if I go ahead. Let's see what you got. I don't want to debunk it. I'm not a professional. Remember that.
Generally speaking, my theory is like when you start getting like that, when you start getting temps in the 40s. Essentially, my thought is smaller presentation. That's the idea. It's more about just super. That's where the real finesse tactics will really come in and become something that I lean on. But I will say this, that a moving bait like a chatterbait or a rattle trap or something will definitely get those bites, but they're more. It's more of a reactionary bite than it is like these fish actively hunting for moving targets. That's generally like the way I look at these temps when we start to get what people up north would consider to be colder water.
Okay. I'm with you.
Yep.
But we caught fish on crankbaits yesterday.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think those like you just get them in the mood where they're reacting and it will absolutely work,
So I guess my thought, and I believe it or not, I was kind of thinking about stuff like this yesterday.
Yeah.
With especially around that beaver lodge where I caught that fish. I think cold water is kind of like a cold front. Okay. And that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum where all right. So that end of the spectrum that I just talked about with a cold front or with cold weather, they're not going to move far to go after a bait, regardless of the size of the bait. They're not going to move far to go after.
Yeah.
Okay? So the other end of the spectrum is like pre-cold front conditions, warming during like the pre-spawn where they're just out of their minds. They'll travel 15 to, I'm throwing numbers out here. They'll travel a good distance to go after a bait. If they feel or hear a chatterbait,
they'll go to it. They'll
go to it.
Yep.
Yeah. And then during colder, they're not, colder temperatures are just not as active.
Yep.
So I was thinking about that yesterday. And when I threw that jig, and I was kind of, because you and I talk about jigs a lot and jig theory and this and that. And I was like, well, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how could I describe this to Bobby where this fish I caught? Now, when I got that bump, I actually caught the fish in a different area. So there might have been 2 fish there. Now, that was question number 1, which I'll never have an answer to. Was there 2 fish or was this the same fish that moved over another 5 feet to then inhale the jig? But I thought about, well, in the spring, I could have thrown that jig there and any fish within 3 feet might have come to it.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's 41 degrees, the fish are lethargic, they're not moving as fast. Maybe I got that jig unknowingly within 6 inches of it.
That's what I'm thinking.
And if any other cast, all the other casts I put around there, even within 3 feet, like basically what I'm saying is to cover 9 feet in the spring around that, or in the summer around that beaver lodge, to cover 9 feet of its area.
Yep.
I could probably do that in 3 or 4 casts. To do that this time of year, it might take me 18 to cover that same area, to make sure the fish are able to get at that jig, or I'm getting the strike zone area. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the strike zone is pulled back in, but then you throw lipless crankbaits and they'll bum rush them. So like I don't. And Nelson yesterday, he'll throw a lipped crankbait, and that monster killed that. So they will move. They will move for stuff.
Absolutely.
So
but I think it's that reaction drive, the instinctual, like, oh snap, and they just go like. It's got to do with like the noise and the vibration and the proximity of where that bait is going by them. And for whatever reason, they just sense it and they snap and they go for it. The other thing about weather, and you kind of nailed this, I love to talk about where it's like, I look at almost like a wave where you have extremes. On either end. And as that wave travels, it's at the extremes that the bite gets difficult. But once things start to find balance in between, I think it gets a little bit better. So if you get, let's say, I usually like to use the term of like 3 days. So if we have, cold nights for 3 days, after that third night of being, super cold, that when that push has really affected the water, that's where I start to feel a little bit confident that like things have sort of balanced a bit and they've acclimated to whatever change was actively changing before. And then the same thing for the other way, when things start warming up, when things warm up quickly and you're just like, oh wow, we've got these nice warm nights, I've always found that for me, it's the low temperature I try to follow more than anything, to kind of dictate what's going on for that day. So I follow the lows all the time. I'm just like, well, how cold is it going to be? Is it, it's been 3 days and it's been really warm, suddenly maybe in the spring. By that, we get after that third night and I feel pretty confident that like, okay, so this water isn't doing anything crazy right now. It's had some time to adjust. And I think that comes into play too, like when you talk about timing and stuff. So Sunday was a great day. And actually, I think that might carry a little bit more weight because we didn't have a great day fishing on Saturday, but Sunday, I think had we gone out to that same spot on Sunday after we had that, it wasn't terribly cold out that Saturday night. I think it got down to like the high 40s that night, I think. And I think that might have been enough to make Sunday an even better day. So watch your weather. Like that's, I guess if there's a tip, I think like weather conditions are really, really important. Look at trends. See what's happening over the course of time. And if you see something drastic happen and, you've had experience where they get fired up, there are people that love fishing right before fronts, and that's what they look for.
There's a lot to unpack with what you just said.
So
First off, I think bass just like consistency, okay? Whether it's temperature, whether it's weather. So I think the water temperature over the weekend, because we had a couple of warm days, Friday and Saturday were all right, right? What contributed to, I think, the bite that we had yesterday was that it was cloudy. It was low light conditions. Bass are ambush predators. They don't want to be seen. So they move around. I feel they move around more freely. Like when I see a tournament coming up that I've entered into, and I see bluebird skies, 85 degrees, my heart sinks.
Yeah, because it's not ideal. That you've got to work a little bit harder.
Well, it's going to get tough.
Yeah,
because the conditions aren't right for them to be moving around freely and ambushing. But if I see rain, if I see wind, oh man, I get fired up. I'm like, all right, this is going to be good.
And there's something else. There's something else about cloud cover too. Cloud cover insulates.
Yeah,
it does.
But it got colder yesterday with the clouds. Yeah, because we didn't have the sun poking through. So the water temperatures were probably the close to or the same at the place I was at. But I think that the clouds aided that bite. If it wasn't cloudy, maybe that fish Nelson caught, that smart old fish, wasn't floating around at whatever mid-level it was, or it wouldn't have gone after that crankbait.
Yeah. See, I think had it been clear, I think it would have gotten colder faster and it would have killed your bite.
I think it would have been warmer clear.
I don't think it would have been warmer clear. I think it would
have sun. If the sun's out, yeah, it definitely would have been warmer because the water temperature would heat up. It was dark water. Sunlight will heat that up.
Of course, it would have warmed it up, but I don't think it would have made the dent in that water. At the surface, it would. I don't think it would make a dent that quickly within a number of hours. With the amount of sunlight we get this time of year, I don't think it would have affected. I think if it was clear, I think it would have cooled down quicker.
I think you'd be surprised once you get a fish finder and a kayak to see how much water temperature at the surface fluctuates, even on a cold day.
No, at the surface, 100% it fluctuates.
But
that's where I forget, and I wish I could quote where this theory of three comes from, but that comes from the ground isn't going to fluctuate temperature until you have X amount of days, and anything subsurface, like the temperature at the topsoil, is going to be different than if you dig X amount of feet down. Same thing like with water, where it's at the surface, you'll have the warmer water up there if the sun's beating down on it, but below it takes so much more, and when you have less sunlight, if you have the amount of sunlight we have in the summertime, it's a different animal. You're talking about hours more exposure.
Which actually you've got that flipped, because at deeper waters in the summer, they're the coldest because of the thermocline.
Because of the thermocline, exactly.
Yes, but and in the winter, water is so weird. In the winter, the surface is actually the coldest because that's where the ice is. So water is such a bizarre scientific entity. I don't know. Figuring it out takes a lot of time, but as far as that, I completely agree with you on the getting my legs under me fishing in whatever 6th, 7th, 8th grade when my family had moved closer to the river.
Yep.
One of my English teachers, I want to say it was 8th grade. It was my 8th grade English teacher. It was Mr. Teehan, Teehan. So thank you, Mr. Teehan. You're getting some props here. I bet you had no idea that 30 years later this would be happening, but he and I would talk fishing all the time. He knew I loved fishing, and he would write. I think he was writing for either On the Water or one of the surf newspapers, like the surf casting newspapers. I don't know if they're even still around, to be quite honest. But I remember he brought one in because he had mentioned me because I had talked about catching a bass off a bed, probably the first time I ever did that.
Yep.
And he always said, "Remember, it's the third good day when you have weather that's fluctuating."
Yeah.
If you're getting in the spring, you get multiple cold fronts coming in. You don't know what's happening because the weather's kind of speeding up and things are changing. That third warm day is always a good one. I still base my fishing off that, but I've tempered it with cold fronts. In the South, a cold front will knock bass fishing out for 2 to 3 days. Those fish just do not adjust well to the pressure quickly. In the
Up
north,
here, I think they rebound a little bit better.
Oh, the 24 hours. I'm back out. I'll give it 25. If I see a really nasty cold front, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to kind of chill out for about 24 hours. Let them come back, figure out when the cold front hits. And to really pinpoint when a cold front hits, this is exactly, I'm exactly on board with checking the weather. What I do is, I'll let everybody on a secret. I use Weather Underground. Okay. Yep. One of my military coworkers introduced it to me years ago, and I have not turned back since. So I'll look at their 10-day forecast, and the 10-day forecast for Weather Underground has graphs on it. Okay. Now here's the trick on Weather Underground. Weather Underground does not just pull from airports. Okay. Having worked on those airports in the past, I understand, and worked on weather equipment. I understand, if you're in, I don't know, name a town that's far away from one of the bases around here.
From one of the bases, Lenox.
Yeah. Okay. So you're in Lenox, right? And what's Lenox close to?
To the New York line, Vermont.
Yeah. Okay. So you might get nearest airport
from Albany.
You might get Albany.
Yeah.
You might get Barnes Air Force Base and Air National Guard Base in Westfield.
Yep.
All right, but it's not localized. When you look at Weather Underground, if you start fooling around with it, you can pull from people. There's weather nerds out there. You can pull from weather systems off people's houses as long as they're pumping it out. So away from the nearest airport, weather equipment is.
Yep.
You can actually pull from somebody's house down the street from your lake, and you're going to get a better reading. Well, depending on their weather equipment, but it tells you what kind of equipment they're using.
How local.
Weather Underground's awesome. So I'll look at their 10-day forecast, and it's a graph. So you see the temperatures. Just looking at the temperatures will tell you when cold fronts hit, because you're going to see a pattern.
Yeah.
And if it fluctuates a couple, within 5 degrees, I ignore it. But you're going to see that, like a sine wave, an electrical sine wave. People are going to be looking up sine waves now. That's SINE. No. Yeah. So on an oscilloscope, you can see a sine wave of an electrical reading, and it's just, a positive and a negative. So it goes up and down. It looks like a U and an upside down U all connected.
Yep.
So you're going to see that with temperatures, because the low end is going to be in the night and the high end is going to be the day, towards the end of the day. So as it goes on in a pattern, you see that as long as it stays within 5 degrees for that high, I don't worry about it. But if you see it peter out away from that pattern at some point, that's when the cold front hits.
It's the extremes.
No, well, no, it's not an extreme. Well, no.
What I mean is like the extreme change when you see a spike or a sharp drop.
Now I'm drawing. Keep talking.
So that's I know what you mean, because like I said before, like when you have, whether it's like I said, like a wave. That's what I was talking about, was like a sine wave. When you have temperatures that run either really quickly, they go high, or they drop low. That's where your drop is. Like you said, 5 degrees is actually a really good number. You probably, if you're looking at Weather Underground, they even will tell you, if you're looking at the next day, like X amount will be much warmer or about the same. So there's even tools there for just quick access of knowing what's going on. For instance, if you look at, even the hourly forecast, and you look, and they are basically telling you that tomorrow will be much cooler than today, that's a good indication of where it is on that pattern. But I get what you're saying. It's because of the drastic change.
Yeah, this is what I look for. All right, can you see that really well?
Yep, that's exactly what I was talking about.
So you see where I circled? I know we should put a picture of this on the website or whatever, but there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're all pretty steady. And then I drew a little, you can see exactly at night, on Thursday, that's where it's dropping. I wish I could show people this diagram. I should be saving all my notes and diagrams from all this shit.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's exactly it. Like, that's where you have this, that's where I look at it. It's all about the change, not the extreme, meaning like overall, it's the change in the trend. That's what sets them off.
Yes. That's when you see that trend, and then the pressure's changing, the fish are going to respond to the pressure changing. They know they're not going to eat for a day. They might feed up beforehand. There's northeast fishing, and then, in the south, it's the same thing, just a longer period of adjustment after the cold front hits.
But you're 100% right, because I've heard people down south that'll say, "Oh, we had this cold front come in, and they, it's been a series of days before the bites kind of come back." It's like they don't rebound as quickly, and I think that just comes to, like, first thing everybody talks about when they talk about weather in the Northeast is how much of a shit show it is. It's just always up and down. You don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes, that kind of thing. Other parts of the country, it's a little bit more stable. And I think that when you have a population of fish that are raised in this unstable kind of weather, they sort of lean a little bit more toward being a little bit more hardy, I guess, in those changes, as far as being able to rebound back a little bit quicker. It's one of the only benefits, I think, to fishing up here.
My thoughts are, number one, they're two separate subspecies. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
right off the bat.
That too.
Anything like, what is it, up to about Virginia or so? Those are all southern largemouth. Those are all, what are they, Florida strain?
I think so.
And everything north is not. So we have northern strain.
I have been hearing that there's been some crossover going on between the two strains. And it's just... What? I've been hearing that there's like some crossover between the two strains, and you're seeing populations change.
We talked about that. I'll get into that in a second. But like with I'm sorry, you cut out there. We were probably gonna have to fiddle around with that. I didn't hear half of your
That's all right.
sense. But with northern strain, they might be more adapted or evolved. I don't want to open up a can of worms by saying evolution, but they might be more evolved to understand. They've got a shorter growing season, and they take more advantage of it, and their bodies are able to adjust to that pressure more, so they can continue eting in the smaller window they have compared to southern bass that get bigger and they're more pressure affected. That's what a theory. I don't know what I don't know.
It's funny because
possible.
I've heard conversations about these different strains of bass before, and there's one. Where did
I think with me?
Would you? No. I've heard this on The Bite, that podcast.
Oh, okay.
And they're based in, I want to say, like Virginia, Maryland. Like, yeah, they fish the Potomac and stuff pretty regularly out that way. Which, I mean, lends itself to exactly like what you're saying. Like right about that line, you start to see a difference. But I think we talk a few decades down the road. we could be, and I think evolution does come into play here because, or if nothing else, adaptation, because you have strains of fish that will need to change their behaviors to get by with the conditions that they now have to deal with,
Yeah.
So,
and where we talked about it in the past, I think it was on the first episode that I was on, was my knowledge of these strains of bass, obviously from fishing in the South and fishing in the North, but my knowledge really increased because of fishing in Oklahoma, where my instructor at the time's house, where he had made that pond, he filled it with 1,400 fingerlings. 1,000 of them were Southern strain largemouth, and 400 were Tiger, which is a cross between a Northern hybrid, and Southern. Right? Yeah, so it's a cross between a Northern and a Southern, but that breeds out after one generation. They're not like what's the term? They're not sterile like a tiger muskie or a tiger trout where they can't breed. These things, they're going to breed with another fish, and eventually it's going to go one way or another. It's going to either.
That's what my next question was going to be: is what species would that?
They'll get as big as Southern bass, Southern strain, but they'll get as pissed off and as bound backy as Northern.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I don't know if I caught any. To my knowledge, there's no physical difference. Who knows?
Yeah. It's crazy. But again, it gets down to that whole, fishing is truly science and art combined. It's, it's unbelievable,
Wow, we went down a rabbit hole on that. I haven't even touched 75% of my notes because we just started talking about that shit.
Yeah. Well, no, it's all good. It's good. Go ahead and dive in. What do you have lined up next?
Oh God, I got a list of shit. First off is an apology.
Wow.
Oh, it's a simple apology, but I feel bad. So last podcast I mentioned, I think I had mentioned that Nelson and I were both participants in the yearly Big Five New England kayak. It's a New England wide kayak bassing based tournament. So over the course of the year, whatever your biggest five fish are, and it's all KBF rules.
Yep.
You turn in your biggest five fish, and I owe Jason Gardner an apology from up in Maine. I said Maine kayak bassing. I am stupid. It's the Maniac Anglers, MYA. Sorry, Jason. I jacked up. I thought you were MEKB, not MAKB. I don't know what to tell you.
It's all
a lot of kayak. Yeah, I know. I feel bad because I fish with Jason. He's a great guy, and he does a hell of a job running that tournament. I also wanted to pump that for him. I figure I can make up for it and give him a little advertising.
Why not?
That tournament is for kayak anglers. All right. So if you're a bank angler, sorry, you're out on this one. You got to be out of a kayak. Your kayak has to be in the photo. That tournament, Jason opened up the 2021 edition this past week. I think it was Friday. I already got in on it. I told Nelson to hurry up because it's a 50-person tournament or a 55, something like a 50 or 55-person tournament. That's how many openings there are. There's already 28 filled. If you're a kayak angler, a CPR kayak angler, and you're familiar with KBF rules, even if you're not and you want to jump in on this thing, this is a really, really, really awesome tournament that runs from, I think he opened it up a little more this coming year, from March to the mid or late October, if not the end of October. So it goes all the New England states and I think New York as well. Double check on that. It's in the listings. It's on Tourney X. But if you're interested in doing this tournament and you think to yourself, hey, I'm out night fishing all the time and it's not part of a tournament, and I've got yet another 20-inch bass on a spinnerbait or a chatterbait or something.
Yep.
Those count.
Oh, so 100% they do.
It is a meat grinder. I know we talked about that where I think the winner had 108 or 110 inches. So that was a number of 22-inch fish plus a bunch of 21s with change.
Oh, yeah.
Not this year. This year I finished a little worse than I did the year before. But this year I finished 14th, I think, 14th or 15th. So top 15 out of 50 anglers. I mean, you got to break 100 inches. So you got to catch 5 fish that are 20 inches. You're talking, the question is, can you catch 5-pound plus bass in a year? And it's not that easy to do.
No, it's not.
I think this year I had one at 21, 2 or 3 at 20. And then I filled in the blanks with 19s and I finished 14th or 15th. The year prior, I did KO 5 bass that were over 20 inches, and I finished 5th, and that was in the money. So you've top 5 or money out of this. So if you're interested, I hope I've done a good advertising job to make up for butchering Jason's organization's name. Jason, again, I'm sorry. I hope this brings some people that are in New England to your tournament even quicker. So there's that off the list. Let me cross that. Boom, crossed. All right, this is a quick one. The metal shirt update, the Sean the Fisherman metal shirt. We did say it was a metal shirt. If not, well, there's your inkling.
There's your spoiler
folks.
right there.
Yeah, there's my spoiler. So with me being a metalhead, we've got this metal themed shirt we've been working on for months. We got all the design done. Thank you, Phil. It is in our hands. And then Bobby sent me a text a week or two ago saying our current shirt distributor will not be able to print on the sleeves, which I said that was a deal breaker. So we are working logistically for, another manufacturer on that. Time will tell. I was hoping to get it done by Christmas, but we both have shit going on, and this is cool, but it's not like the end all be all of the fishing show. We got a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. It may not be something that is going to happen ASAP, because instead of finding something that works, we want to do this one right. So the current store is going to stay where it is until we find the right fit. But when we launch with the new store, lots of new merch coming. So sit tight. So that's definitely going to happen.
Sorry about that, folks. And something we should also bring up, this wasn't on my list, but with the hats, we should probably talk a little bit about the hats, right? Because the hats take a little longer to ship than the shirts, right?
No, they're right about the same.
Okay.
Yep, they're right about the same. I mean, the hats are embroidered, so I mean the process to get them done might be a little bit quicker. But basically, the way it is depending on the day that you run, you're in a campaign. So depending on the day of the week. So that campaign ends at the conclusion of whichever week you start at. So I think it's on Friday or Saturday it runs till. When it's done, I think it's Friday. And what happens is then they go to get shipped. So whatever orders are collected within that week go to get shipped, go to get printed that following week. Now that process may take a little bit of time to get done, depending on when the day is that they get sent out. What happens after that is then they go from being put together to getting shipped. And once they're shipped, it usually takes about 3 or 4 days from there. It's not too bad. So we've referenced this before. There is a little bit of a wait with our current online store. That was one of the things that we didn't love. And like a moron, when we initially set up, I made each campaign like 3 weeks long. So depending on where you were in that campaign, there was a major delay there. But we've sold some merch to folks, and it's been much better now that it's only a 7-day campaign, but that's as short as I'm able to make it in order to make it work with that current store. So again, it's not a situation that we're excited about, having to deal with this store. It does make it very easy on us, but we're looking at I've got about a dozen right now, different options, and I just have to find the one that's going to work because there's other stuff that we want to offer too. Some performance stuff.
And when we talked about this in the beginning, and you let me know, I mean, you already had the merchandise stuff going before I even really jumped on and went got my hands dirty helping you out with all this stuff.
Yep.
But I love the fact, and I think any small retailer would, that we don't have pre-printed T-shirts sitting around. So it's not like
we don't have a warehouse.
It's not like we're donating a box of extra small T-shirts, to some South African country because we can't sell them. Yeah. They're made to order, which is awesome. You and I don't have T-shirts or merchandise or, aside from jig kits lying around our house, but those are for a giveaway. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
So we don't have to worry about that stuff. And we've heard the similar term before. We're not getting rich off this, and I don't want shit lying around my house. Neither does my wife, and neither does your wife.
Absolutely.
And neither do you. So if something is taking a little while, just keep that in mind, and we're working it. Other notes. What do I got here? I got a note, but we're going to talk about that in a minute because that's going to lead to another conversation, I think. So I stopped into Old Glory the other day. I think it was a day before you. I think I went last week and you went Saturday, right?
Yep, I went Saturday. Yep.
Yeah, so I just want to, Old Glory is our sponsor, full disclosure there. But if you guys are looking for something and you see it on their website and they don't have the right color, just call Joe and ask, or call Meg and ask. They're on top of it. Joe was able to secure me some items. I mean, we love our discount too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I had an item that I needed a large number of, and it was a certain color plastic, and I wanted to make sure I went through him on that and just said, "Hey, dude, this isn't on your website. Can we get a hold of this color?" 2 words, no problem. And then I got a phone call when they came in and said, I'll pick them up as soon as I can. Easy peasy. So if you don't see something on Old Glory's website, call them up and ask and say, hey, I'd like this. Either can you get it for me, or you carry this and it's not in the right color, or not in the right color. That doesn't sound right. It's not in the color I'd like. Can I get the color I'd like? And Joe will take care of it.
Absolutely, you will.
Yeah. So there's that. But that was fun. I haven't stopped in Old Glory in a little while. So that was cool. All right. I have 2 reviews for you.
You have 2 reviews? Oh, man.
Yeah. Do you want me to save this? Do you want me to do them now? What do you want me to talk about reviews?
What are these? What are you reviewing? Are you reviewing gear, or are these reviews about us?
No, these are gear reviews. These are 2 things that I've used over the year, and I think I can throw some information out.
I would go for it then.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with the. I'm gonna start low and finish high. You ready?
Let's do it.
So I say lower than the high point. So the first thing we all know, you and I've talked about it on the show, the Concept A reels.
Yep.
Okay. I knew going in that the braking system was not my cup of tea. Is that PC enough?
I think that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Okay. So if anybody's been listening, if you haven't listened, I have major issues with bait casting reels that have braking systems that are internal, where you don't have a knob on the outside to turn. Like it drives me nuts. I love the knob. So I prefer that feature on the outside of a reel. I think it's quicker. I can dial it in better. I love it. And going from a lot of loose reels in the past, which have that feature, to this Concept A, I knew I wasn't going to like it. And adjusting the brake has been nothing for me, nothing more than a total bitch. It drives me nuts. Every other feature on that reel, I think is fine, if not top notch. They're great. It's smooth. I haven't had really any like issues that I can point out are like design flaws or anything like that.
No.
Backlashes are backlashes. People backlash. A reel doesn't backlash itself. My backlashes, I think, with that have been nasty, have all been my fault. But I can't find any fault with that reel, other than the fact that it's got that internal braking system, which personally I do not like. I'm sure there's a million anglers out there that do not mind that system. I do. So I gave that, I don't know, a C+ or a B. I think it's a fine reel. There's nothing wrong with it if you're okay with the internal brake, which a lot of anglers are. I am not, so I'm going to use it until it's dead. But my next one after that will be a model of reel with an external brake. Knob.
Got it. I will tell you this. I was with you with the external brake adjustments. Is leaning that way. I always kind of veer away from having to take apart the reel to adjust the brakes. But what I have found is that, in my experience, I have chosen reels where I can set it, get comfortable with them, make those adjustments, and then they're set. Like, they're good. But, that's not always going to be the case with every single reel. I think I'm only 2 in with that system, and, there's a whole world of gear out there that's got that style of brake. So I think I've gotten lucky so far with that, but I see what you're saying, and I agree. Like, if you want to make a quick adjustment, it's very nice to just click a dial. Or grab hold of the knob.
Yeah, grab the knob just so I can flesh this out. Just so I can flesh this out a little more. It's not just me complaining about how easy it is.
No,
my keyword with fishing is versatility.
Yep.
I've gone over that 1,000 times since we started doing this. And when I have one bait caster that I use for everything from 1.5 inch light crankbaits to half-ounce chatterbaits to sometimes even 3/4 ounce like spinnerbaits and stuff, I need to be able to switch that quickly.
Yes.
And this one, the concept, when you open it up, number one, getting the spool out, I found this is where I have a complaint. You when you pull that side panel off, I get why they did it. There's a bar that comes with it, and it doesn't completely detach. So we're like a loose one. If I want to take that side of my reel off, the whole thing comes off, and I can have it in my right hand, while the reel is in my left.
Yeah.
With the concept, if I take that off, it's still one piece. I can't. I'm sure when I disassemble it this winter to clean it, I'll be able to see what's holding it in place. But when you have it just kind of turned sideways, so you can adjust the brake, if you have a major backlash like I did last weekend in that tournament,
yeah,
I can't get the spool out. it's a pain in the ass to get the spool out.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
strike number one. The other thing is when you're actually going to change the brake, and I talked with Joe about this from Old Glory because he either bought or was using a similar model. One of my nervous ticks is that I still bite my nails. Like, it sucks. I'm an adult male and I bite my nails. I can't turn it unless I use a tool. That's how fine that gear system is to change the brake. And I don't want to be digging in there with a tool. Like, it's too far for me. Like, I'm so used to the ease of switching that external brake knob. This has gone too far for me. And I like I said, I like it. It's fine as far as the reeling, the casting, everything's fine. That brake feature is murder for me. So makers of Concept A, I apologize if you don't like hearing this, but if you make a reel with an external brake, I am on board. I am on board.
Yeah.
Right now, I am not. So I will probably not be buying another one. Again, if somebody's looking for one with an internal brake, this is the reel for you. If it's not, I'm good. It's that one feature is that important to me.
This was, I think I had mentioned this to Joe, was that I see, because I have the Concept A, the same reel, just in another gear ratio as you. And I've never opened it up at the water. I've never had to. It was controlled environment. I took some time. I threw on my most thrown jig with the trailer style so I could dial it into that weight. And I took about 30 minutes kind of tinkering with it to get it right. And I've had some backlashes, just moron things like, hey, look, the big gust of wind. Whew, like a moron. Hey, these things happen,
Yeah.
My experience with it has been fantastic, but I always would preface this, and it goes for the same thing with the Corrado. And I know, like, your take on that. There's one at the bottom of a pond in an Oklahoma. I know your take with the Corrados.
In a shallow grave with Jimmy Hoffa.
These reels are amazing if you're comfortable with bait casters. Like, you've got to be comfortable with using them, and I think that when you're dealing with internal brakes, because there will be a lot of frustration when you're trying to learn this stuff. You're going to be blowing up reels of line, trying to dial it in and get things together, and the learning curve isn't necessarily there. The one thing that I've noticed about the Concept A that I've used is that the brakes lean very, very light. So
they do, yes.
They do. They lean very, very light. I like a loose reel for the most part.
It's like a drum.
I like the. I do. I like them a little bit loose. As far as the brakes are concerned. The reason primarily is that, right now the Concept A is on my jig rod. It's an 8.5 to 1 gear ratio reel. It's an absolute monster. I went in there actually to get another Corrado, which is same specs, that same Corrado that I've got. And Joe made the suggestion. He was like, you should really try this Concept A. I've been using them, and I'm a Corrado guy. And that makes sense why he and I like them, because, we're kind of, they fit in that same family. So I got this reel, and I noticed what's interesting is that, so the brakes that I have on my Corrado, the one thing that I will say about the Corrado is that there is a dial where you can set the brakes internally, and there's a dial there where you can make an adjustment more or less, how much you want that brake to play in there. And it's very, very cool. I expected to actually have to be adjusting that much, much more regularly, but it's pretty much, I found its happy spot. And whether I'm throwing a 1/4 ounce buzzbait or I'm throwing, the BBZ rat, I pretty much stays right where it's going to stay. Like, I set the tension of where it is. I make the adjustments for that, obviously that's easy, but that's pretty much it. With the Concept A, what I have noticed is that, I think, what is the brake system there? It's a little different where in the Shimano brakes, there's tabs that go across from one another, and you open and close those tabs accordingly. So it's a little bit like, okay, is it on or is it off? How do you want to coordinate those brakes? With the Concept A brakes, there's a dial inside, and it's numbered. I want to say it's either 1 through 5 or 1 through 6. I think it's 1 through 6. And if it's on 6, I have my brakes on 5, which is way more than any other reel that I would normally go. But this reel leans much more loose than anything else. So it's another one of those things where I'd say if you're just learning with a bait caster, this is not necessarily the reel to start with unless you're prepared to like learn the hard way. This is like significant, you know. I mean, when you're casting with this, it's like it definitely runs a little bit on the heavy side. But
yeah, when I learned, I mean, really to really dumb it down.
Yep. What
I did was for my first, aside from the Corrado, and it was Nebraska. That Corrado went into a shallow grave.
Oh, it was Nebraska, not Oklahoma. Yeah. Okay.
I already had a handle on bait casters by the time I got to Oklahoma, but by the time I got to Oklahoma, that's a hit single in Germany, isn't it? David Hasselhoff?
It probably is. Yeah.
So. What I learned with was the old the Abu Garcia ambassadors, because there's no break. There's literally no break. It's just a spool tension. That's it. It's one of those big old round ones. And I learned on that.
Oh, it's an OG
so once, but they're still making them.
But is it a low profile style? Like
no, it's round.
Yeah,
but it's still
the
round.
The mechanics are there. Yeah.
Yeah, the mechanics are there. You can learn spool tension and learn how weight affects that. Mm-hmm. So like my braking has really come into play in the past like 5 years. No. I still use the brake. I don't like cutting cast short with a thumb unless I'm going into like some sort of structure I don't want to be in. Yeah, like a tree. My thumb is used in case of emergency. That's a
it's your e-brake.
Yeah, exactly. But as far as braking goes, those Abus are they're not super expensive. They're under $100, and learning to do that in Minnesota was step one for me.
Yeah.
Step two was moving to a luge where, luge are so hard to backlash. Like if I can hand someone who's never bait casted before and say, this is how this works, and it's just impossible to backlash them. And that's, I didn't bring them up when we were talking about them. I was talking about them namelessly with removing the model of reel that in a speed that I like.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And that's what led to buying the Concept A. But I still use luge reels. I'm comfortable with them. I'm comfortable breaking them down.
Yep.
I love luge reels. I really, really, really do. But they took away the model I was using and the gear ratio I was using, not the model. The model's still there. They took away that 5.5, and I rely on that. Yeah. And that's my go-to for all moving baits. I like a slower gear ratio.
Yep.
It's a slower presentation. I like that. And they took it away, so I had to stop using that, and it sucks. I'm really like upset about that because I've been using luge reels for like 10 years.
Oh yeah.
Like faithfully.
I've only got one luge reel in the mix right now. It's a spinning reel. That's that Mach 2, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. And I'm not one of when it comes to gear like this, I'm not one of those people who has to have everything line up the same. I like parts that work well together. But yeah, that is that's kind of a pain in the ass. Wasn't it also like I've heard other of their reels, like they'll offer, a line of whatever gear ratio, but they won't necessarily have that one in a left-hand retrieve.
Sometimes luge is like that too.
Yeah.
But I mean, everything I had was there. I had my method there, and they decided not to carry that one. And that's a business decision by them. I'm not busting that. I'm just upset about it because it was one I used. So I'm being selfish right here.
Well, that's what podcasts are, really. We all start this, we don't want to get famous. We just want a place where we can bitch.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, that works. So now that was the low point. Here's the high. You ready for this?
Give me the high.
My God, I bought a 7-foot Abu Garcia Veritas spinning rod.
Mm-hmm.
All right. After the horrible, heartbreaking destruction of my last remaining original carrot stick. It's not at the carrot stick love affair level yet.
Okay.
But it's warming up, man. I give this an A. I have done everything with it. I am buying a second one over the winter.
Really? Okay.
Veritas. It's the older model, but they still can be found on eBay and Amazon.
Yep.
So I'm going to be picking up another one, identical, because I think we talked about like where I keep separate spools of line.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't even use the braid anymore. I keep a spool of braid, an extra spool, because the reels I use have extra spools. So I was bringing a spinning combo out there with a spool on it of, whatever. I think I have 10-pound fluorocarbon now.
Yep.
And then with it, a spool of 10-pound monofilament for using like floating jerk baits and some other stuff I like, really finessey stuff.
Yeah.
And then also I was keeping a 10 or 15-pound spool of braid. I have those three, so I would carry. And there's the spools are not spools of line that you buy from the store. There's extra spools that just I can cut my lure off and pop a whole new spool onto my reel. It's a reel spool, not a line spool.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not carrying two reels. You have one reel, and you change out the spool, and you've got something different on there.
Three reels. Yeah. So I would have braid, mono, and fluoro because I have different purposes for each.
Yep.
So what I've found is mono and fluoro are doing everything I need to do. I don't need to carry a spool of braid with me, so I'll have a spare spool, which is fine. So what I'm going to do is get an identical setup, one of these Veritas spinning rods, and put. I have a spare reel. I'm just going to keep one with mono, one with fluoro because it's doing everything I need. But that speaks volume. I give that thing an A. If I developed a love affair like I did with the carrot stick, where I go to another rod and then immediately like I'm pissed off that it's not the carrot stick, then it gets an A+. But right now it's a solid A. I love these rods. Go ahead and hit the drum on that too. I love knobs, rods, all of it.
Rods, nubs, fast women, fast food,
fast cars, fast women, fast food, you name it. So yeah, there's my gear reviews. That's a simple one. I'm really, really, really liking these Veritas rods. They're not expensive. They're under $100, and they are doing some damage. Now, I should make mention on these two fishing rods. Most of what I've been throwing with finesse lures, Ned rig stuff is on that rod, and I have caught a ton of fish on it and have not had any problems.
Yeah.
And then a redeeming quality, just so you know, I'm not burying this concept A. I caught my biggest freshwater fish on it.
Oh yeah.
I caught that pike using that reel.
Yeah.
Yeah. With 15-pound fluoro. It works. It's just one feature that I think is important enough that I'm going to steer away from it on my next purchase. I'm not putting this down and buying a new reel immediately. I'm going to use it. I'm going to see it through. It costs me a lot of money. Yeah. But it's next one.
This isn't your go-to feature-wise, what you're leaning toward. And that's understandable.
Great example. All right. And this is going to lead into this is a great segue too. Great example. I'm in the process of purchasing a new truck. All right. So you and I have talked about this, and anybody who's purchasing a truck out there, I have an older Tacoma. It's a 2012. Okay. I have driven that thing all over the country. It's time now to move into a bigger truck because I'm a tall guy. My kids are tall and they can't fit in the back.
Yeah.
I have to get a Crew Max. And guess what? They don't make them in Tacomas. They only make them in Tundras. So I have to bump up to a Tundra. Yeah, of course they don't. So my kids can fit in the back seat of my giant kids who are going to be 6-footers like myself are smashed into the back of this Tacoma. So I have to get a bigger truck. So I've been in process of buying one. Well, guess what happened when COVID hit? Toyota closed their factories. So the backlog has been insane. So I've been working with the dealership locally, and they've been setting aside, like, hey, we got your truck, and boom, somebody will swipe it out from under them. It's been insane. So like I've been on tap to get this truck since October, if not September, and it just hasn't happened. So I'm actually, with any luck, picking it up Tuesday. So that'll be nice. But I wanted to with all this truck stuff going on in my life and the purchases and that. Do you remember what we used to call when we got cars in the 90s, right? When we first got our licenses. Do you remember a good slang term for a car? What did you pick up? Did you pick up your first car? Did you pick up your first?
I got my first ride. My first whip.
Your first whip, your first ride, but there's another one where that ride is derivative of.
Who ride?
Yeah, close. Your hoopty. You remember your hoopty?
Oh, well, the very first car was always a hoopty.
Your first car was a hoopty because it got you to and from basketball. You were always your hoop ride. That's what I'm saying. Your hoop ride became the hoopty.
True.
That's how I learned it. How you get a hoopty, right? So this is a funny non-Sean the Fisherman story.
Oh, all right. Okay. This ought to be good.
So in the military, when you get in, you make, I don't know if anybody knows this. When you get in the military, you make no money until you get to you're a non-commissioned officer. Yep. Until you get to E5, you're not making shit. So you're usually within your shop, people recycle beaters between each other. Like somebody will be, an E1 through an E3 or an E4, and they've got 2 or 3 or 4 cars in 2 or 3 years. And they're just beat to shit cars, they're 1987 Buick Skylarks or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when the new guy gets to the shop and you put on that E5 rank and you're like, oh, hey, I can actually afford a car now. Then you sell that beater to the next guy and it just reciprocates. And then, you're driving cars into the ground.
Yep.
So working in veteran services, I worked with an older gentleman. who has retired, and he was working with a nonprofit to help out. You know, it wasn't about the money. It was about helping people where he could. And he said to me one day, and he's like, yeah, I'm talking to this guy, and he's not doing well on money. And he says, here's your plan. We're going to get you a job within walking distance, and then we're going to get you your whoopty. And then you're going to be able to get to your work farther away. And I go, Charlie, what the hell's a whoopty?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, he goes, a whoopty, a car. And I go, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. He goes, a whoopty.
It's like a hybrid whip meets hoopty.
Yeah, whoopty. And I'm like, are you talking? I'm thinking like whoopee, like making love. And I'm like, what the fuck, Charlie? Where are you going with this? Like, he goes, when you get the new guy in the shop and you give him your beater car, that's a whoopty. I go, I'm thinking about it, and I actually thought about it for like until lunch, and I went to lunch with him. I said, I think I know what you were getting at, because that's a slang term for the 90s for like your first car to get to and from like basketball courts, a hoopty.
Yeah.
Not a whoopty. I go, your hoop ride, it's a hoopty. And he goes, oh, and I go, okay, this is just a generational gap. But it was funny that he's like telling somebody to go out and get a whoopty. I'm like, I hope you straighten it out with that guy. So
hey, why don't you go?
Get your whoopee. Yeah, these are the days of our lives, Bobby Roast Beef. These are the days of our lives. So yeah, I was thinking about that yesterday. I was laughing, so I figured I'd bring that up on the show. And with all the truck issues I've been having, trying to get my purchase going, yeah, just tied right in. So the last two things I have.
Yes,
I know. This is like, I made a list. I hope you're happy that you're responding to my list today. At least we're talking about this.
No, I love this. Yeah, no, you got to get it out.
I was gonna explode.
I got whoopties over here. I got whoopties over there.
Yeah, I'm yelling "fuck you" at Nelson. I got whoopties. We're talking about reels, backlashes, knobs, fast cars, loose women, whatever's going on. I don't know what's happening. It's so Monday. Oh my God, it's rainy out. What is happening? Oh, geez. All right. This is what happens when you break 600 bass. That's what happens.
True. You just lose your freaking minds.
Apparently. So, all right. So I'm going to be taking a step. I'll be asking Santa Claus this year.
Oh, okay.
For what may be another possible solution to the cold weather gear question we posed to the listeners months ago.
All right.
I don't know. Maybe it was a week ago. I don't know. When the hell did we ask that? Like a month ago?
We asked it on the show quite a while ago. And then I brought it up on Instagram last week a couple of times. Had a great conversation with Joe at Old Glory about some of the options that are out there. But go ahead. I'm curious what you're putting on your Christmas list.
Yeah. So I will be putting a pair. Or I know the pants. I found the model pants I want. So there's actually wetsuits that are broken in half. They're not sold together, but it's like bottoms and tops.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go with that because I think that's going to alleviate the problems I have with my shoulders and back when I'm wearing a wetsuit, like a Farmer John style, and it's pulling down on me.
Yep.
This should alleviate that because, well, honestly, I'm a fat guy and the shirt's going to want to go up over my gut, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also, it's kind of like being like a hinged swim bait in a way. Like, you don't have that tension. You kind of have the freedom of two separate parts. You'll be like your own wake bait is really what you'll be like,
Hey, look at me. I'm a wake bait now. All right. So that's where I'm going to be going with that. So I'll have reviews on that after, if Santa Claus, doesn't bring me coal this year and I get that, then, I'll have some sort of review, I'm sure, by March or April.
Yeah.
Because I'll be wearing that on the water. So that's one thing. And then here's the other thing, because you brought up Joe, and I know like all the conversations that you've thrown up on Instagram and Facebook about various gear. So one of them I saw you put up about, and we barely touched on this, and I wanted to throw my 2 cents in on it, was the ice fishing gear. Where to start, right?
Yes.
Because as we know, there's going to be some Bobby Roast Beef Shenanigans ice fishing this year. So there's two parts to this.
Mm-hmm.
The first part we cover will be actual gear. Like, what do you need to fish from the ice? Well, that's great. But when you're ice fishing, you are not running to and from tip-ups the whole time.
No.
So that's part two is going to be the other shit.
The clothing.
No.
Oh, not the clothing.
No, the shenanigans.
Oh, the shit. Okay.
Dude, ice fishing, like my older cousins, all right, would laugh when they'd say, when I talk about ice fishing, because my history with ice fishing is kind of spotty. I did it a little bit here and there with a buddy of mine in high school.
Yeah.
Little nod to Jeff Sypek. Jeff, if you're out there listening, he and I ice fished until one day we were ice fishing at the Oxbow in the Chicopee River.
Yep. I think I know Jeff Sypek.
Yeah, Jeff's a great guy.
Yeah, I think I know.
He moved out to the Midwest. Maybe I'll try to convince him. He's always out. He's a big steelhead fisherman. He loves fishing for steelhead. That's when I see his fishing pictures. He's out hunting. He fishes for steelhead and he ice fishes. And I don't think he does a lot warm weather, but that was his gig.
Yeah.
So Jeff and I, with that area of the Chicopee River being right by my parents' house and right by his house, I went through the ice up to middle of my thigh. And it wasn't deep. It was muck. I walked it's my own fault. I walked too close to a bunch of vegetation and you could see the ice getting discolored. And I still went over there and I went through it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from that point to my parents' house is about half a mile. I walked half a mile with frozen legs back to my parents' house, and I sat in a bathtub for about 45 minutes or an hour to get feeling back in my legs.
I believe it.
That was and
worst.
just being kids, we were just so stupid.
Yeah.
Like I should have called, we didn't have cell phones. I couldn't call my parents.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I walked back. That was hell. But anyways, I didn't ice fish for years after that. And it wasn't because I was scared, just because I just wasn't into it. And then a couple years ago, when we moved to the house here with the pond, one of my cousins had said, I have a whole bunch of ice fishing stuff and a sled and all these tip ups and this and that. We used to cart around the sled. It's modified so that you can tow it around on a snowmobile. He goes, I'm done with this cold weather shit. You can have it. So I inherited it. And where this comes into with my older cousins, they used to laugh because when I would talk about ice fishing back in the day, they would say, we call it ice drinking. Okay, it's a party.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not doing a lot of fishing. You're out there partying.
No, you're hanging out and socializing.
Yes.
There's a lot of cooking of foods and cracking of beers and other beverages.
Yes. So I guess we'll start with part 2 right there, because if you ice fish with Nelson and myself, and his dad loves to ice fish.
Yep.
We bring sleds out there, and the minority of the area on the sled is taken up by actual ice fishing
tackle. Yeah. And equipment.
I bring my folding grill. I bring a cooler. Mm-hmm. We make sure we have food. We're grilling up. It's an odyssey, dude. It's not, you're going to be kind of blown away by it's a party on the ice versus where, it is, I think you're going to be more surprised about my attitude about it, because if a tip up goes off, like I might want to go for one, but most of the time I'm yelling for the kids to get them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I know, and if there's a problem, I'll help unhook. No, this is a social gathering of sorts. I mean, it's going to be different this year with all the COVID shit, but it's outside. I guess as long as we stay apart from each other, we should be fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, so it's funny. You bring up something really, really key about the gear for ice fishing. And what was it, last Wednesday or Thursday? I posted looking for questions, basically, of suggestions of things that I should be taking out while we're ice fishing. And my focus was more with clothing. Because number one, you're not going to have a good time ice fishing if you're freezing. You're just not. You're out in the elements, and if you're going to make it out there for any amount of time, whether the goal is to catch fish or catch a buzz or just have a good time and bullshit with your friends, you're not going to be comfortable if you're uncomfortable with what you're wearing because you're not insulated well or anything like that. So you need the right kind of gear. So that was what I was initially looking at. And I will say this, that ultimately I think out of all the research that I've done is that number one, boots are the priority. You've got to get a good set of boots, because if you have shit boots, doesn't matter what else you're wearing, you're going to be cold. You need quality boots.
Yes, I would agree with that. But I mean, obviously cold weather stuff
oh yeah, absolutely. But that is the place to start. If you're going to spend money, spend the money on the boots. That's what. Oh. That's what I've been told. Now, this is granted. There are varying degrees. I have found that my tolerance for cold weather, when it comes to boots, I don't need a boot that insulates like crazy. But what you want is a sole that's thick enough to separate you from really what you're standing on, the ice. The more insulation you can put between you, like in that sole, the better off you'll be. The less likely you'll be to be freezing. Some people, like my father, oh man, I remember when he would go out deer hunting, he's just like, I get out there and my feet are freezing. And he's always looking for some kind of boots. When I first started with him, my boots, I was like, man, these things, they're just too hot. I need something that breathes. Like I just run a little bit warmer. My feet don't necessarily need it like that. So, and then waterproof. That's the other thing.
That's more important.
Waterproof. Yeah, more than anything. You want waterproof boots that will keep you dry and warm.
So here's my take. We're just going to talk about clothing right now.
Okay.
We'll get into gear in a second, but all right.
Let me just throw this out there before we dive down the clothing, because what I was getting at was a lot of people were saying, what kind of stuff should I get? And I should have indicated that I was looking for like clothing ideas, like what brands or items, what are the bibs that you've used that are really of quality, what outer shells, what about the initial, like the undergarments that you wear that won't necessarily, the stuff that wicks moisture off of you, that makes sense, that's the performance stuff, And what a lot of people suggested was beer, hot dogs. I had a lot of people say tip-ups and, like ice rods and jigs and different baits drugs and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I got a lot of people that were just like, oh, you need like an okay cooler, just like a cooler, but you need beer. You're going to need some like hot dogs or some cheddar wurst or something. And I'm like, well, duh. I know all that.
So I'll tell you what I wear, and I'll tell you some of the issues I have with it. Because it's not ice fishing bibs. Like I need to buy an ice fishing bib. There's no way around it for one reason. I wear an old, it's like, when did I get it? 2008. I got it in 2008 or 2009. I got an old Carhartt bib at work.
Yep.
And I was allowed to keep it. So it's warm. It works. Like when I do the driveway, when I'm out, snow blowing the driveway or shoveling, I wear that and it's fine.
Yeah.
There's no issues with it. The problem I have with it ice fishing is it doesn't have the padded, or not the padded, but like the coated knees where, you can see on ice fishing bibs, the knees have some sort of different fabric that's waterproof because you kneel down to tip ups a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're kneeling down for that stuff. That's getting wet. Yeah. And generally those are tougher because they, you want to be able to get down on the ice and you don't want to wear that away. So like a lot of times that material is a little bit tougher.
Yeah. Yes, and but the big thing is the wetness. Because if you're out and it's snowing, you're going to get a little wet because that top layer of snow doesn't exactly freeze right to the ice. Your body heat's going to melt that. You're going to get a little wet. If it's sunny out, the top layer of ice could be melting a little bit. You could be in puddles. That happens.
Happens all the time.
So that happens. So yeah, I'm looking for a bib in the future that it's going to have those knee pads on it.
Yep.
As far as boots go, waterproof, I think, is more important. I have a pair, and it came with those Carhartt ones for, I hate to say galoshes, but they're insulated where it's like it's an insulated inner sock.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And those that I've never had a problem with those boots, but now I have to get a new pair because I've worn them so much since 2008 that they actually have splits where my foot bends where I step.
Yep.
So those are worthless to me because
it's just warm. The water will get right through that way.
Exactly. Yep. So that's a problem, but I will probably buy that same pair of boots. I love those things.
It's funny. I that's actually where I was leaning toward, like almost like a muck boot style with like a good wool sock.
I'll send you the make and model of mine, we could even post that up or somewhere. But they're awesome. It's just unfortunately I've used them to death, and the fact that they've lasted 12 years in New England, when I wear them fishing and ice fishing and all sorts of shit, that's a testament to how good they were made. The other thing that I have found, and I've actually gone as far as to buying these for older relatives, for even if they don't ice fish. I buy, and Nelson wears a different kind. I think he found them. He found them at Ocean State Job Lot. Cleats are the most important thing you can buy to put over your boots.
That's another big one.
You don't slip and knock the tits off the side of your face because it's ice. You will.
Oh yeah.
We're old, man. We will fall and
hit your face, and your teeth go out like chiclets falling out of a jar. Yeah.
I don't want that shit. Like, so one of my sons can ice skate, and my wife can ice skate, and they both played hockey at their various points. Yep. And my other son and I don't ice skate. We have the same body style where we're just going to be tall, lanky, whatever. We make sure we have the cleats on because the other two are skating circles around us, but we always have cleats on.
Yeah.
As far as bibs and other stuff, like, I'll wear, a layer of under, whatever makes you comfortable that you're going to be comfortable, dry and warm in.
Exactly.
Sometimes I wear a winter jacket. Really goofy Sean the Fisherman story. The base I was stationed at, there's a base exchange, a BX for those of us, that know the Air Force terms. There's all sorts of, there's Navy exchange, there's PX, there's all sorts of, whatever X is out there in military bases. At mine, there was a clearance rack.
Oh,
and there was a Columbia jacket that I kept my eye on that moved to the back even for a while. I kept my eye on it for about a year and a half.
Okay.
Every time I went there, this one Columbia jacket would not sell, and it went from $132 to $64, and then to $32.
What?
Then to $16. I bought this Columbia jacket for $8. You probably see me wearing it. It's gray and has orange on it.
Yeah.
I bought that thing like 15 years ago for $8 because they kept cutting it in half because it wouldn't sell.
Yeah.
It went into the back for a while and then came back out, and that's when I found it for $8. I'm like, I walked out of that place like a champion. That was
That's
the best.
awesome,
So I still wear that ice fishing. It's got a nice insulated layer. It's good stuff. And then you can wear a sweatshirt, whatever you want. It's just as long as you're going to be out of the elements. For our Southern listeners, we're talking a different language here. Like, it gets nasty. We got to wear some really nasty cold weather gear so you don't go out and die in 10 minutes. But, that's that, as far as clothing. Good pair of gloves is always good too. I wear neoprene gloves with the fingers that pull back. Those are fine for me. As far as like I said, with the cooking stuff, here's a great way to bridge it to our Southern listeners. Anything you would bring tailgating that you can have in a cart, we're putting it in a sled and bringing it out on the ice. I heard you're concerned, Bobby, about the fire on the ice. Nelson's dad actually has this standing, like a burn bin.
Yeah.
And it's off the ground. It's awesome. It's smaller, but if you want to go warm your hands up, it's great. And you're gonna find a puddle under it. It's hot. It's metal. It transmits heat.
Exactly, but it doesn't do, like, when I would go out, like in the 90s, and also, like, let's be honest, winter now is a whole lot more mild than it was when you and I were in high school. You know, and that's where, like, back then I would see people driving trucks out on the ice and, like, oh yeah, we don't have a cart, everything's on the truck, we're gonna drive right out and then bring it back on. I've never seen, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, I've never seen anything, any trucks go through the ice per se, but that's not smart. It's not smart.
Well, like, there's numerous charts that you can go online and see thickness of ice and safety and what you can drive out on the ice or bring out on the ice with the thickness. And it happens a lot more out in the Midwest because it's just a bigger sport out there. They have bigger lakes.
Definitely.
There's tons of ice fishing. When you get, Lake Superior or whatever, or, one of the Great Lakes or a big, huge lake out there that freezes, you're not talking 6 inches of ice.
No.
You're talking 18 to 24, multiple cars. It's nuts.
You can put, so, it's not a problem. For different areas. But I'm like, back in the day, and I'm like, here we are, we're talking about locally, we didn't get safe ice. I can remember a time where there was always safe ice. It wasn't an issue, it was just a question of how early you could get out there. And, now it's like, and I can remember going out like with my dad and my uncles and just a whole bunch of people, and there'd be a big fire on the ice and everybody be cooking and stuff and hanging out. And like, I think that's fantastic. I do see some ice fishermen that get out there and they are out there, they'll set up their shanty, they'll put their spot, drop their electronics, and they will just jig there and work that spot, go to another one. But they've put the work in to kind of know, this is where this spot is, this is what's below me, this is what I'm working for as far as a piece of structure, and I'm going to work this here. And it's very meticulous. So it's like, there's a range of ice anglers, just as much as there is a range for open water anglers, for sure. Definitely. As far as actual fishing gear, I mean, number one, you need an auger. Yeah, I buy hand augers. Nelson has one where he took a hand auger end and attached it to a power drill. So that's just brilliant. And he just goes right through the ice with that. I don't mind doing the hand auger. It's not a big deal. I've always had a hand auger anyway. Yeah. But now there are I've heard that there's some electric augers that are unbelievably light. Well, that's what like Nelson's is. It's just it's a hand drill. That's it. It's a hand drill that he attached the end of an auger to, and he just goes whoop, whoop, like he's putting a screw in. It's great. So that one's good, but he's got to bring extra batteries for it. That's why I always keep the hand auger with, because you never know. You ever run out, you're good. So you need an ice scoop to get the skim ice out of there as it forms, or where the junk ice out of there. Obviously, you'll need either a tip up. If you got a tip up, ice line is a little different.
And what I do is I take my ice line. I keep it simple. Again, ice fishing is not where I'm super overly competitive. I'm out there to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
To be quite honest. I'm out there to, fish while eating instead of like where I bring my lunch in the kayak and I'm out there fishing and having a bite to eat. But
yep.
So I'll have my ice line on there and I'll just buy it cheap. I don't really care. I haven't fished a lot of pike infested waters ice fishing. And then I just grab split rings, like one single split ring. And then I will loop a length of fluorocarbon to it. And I know fluorocarbon is supposed to get brittle in the cold. I haven't had any issues with it. And even if I do, I don't care because I'm just ice fishing. If a pickerel takes a minnow, that's good, gone. And then I tie a hook to it just with a usual Palomar knot. I know how to tie a snell knot, but I don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just put a minnow on there. And honestly, like when I sound the bottom, you need a little weight or something to sound the bottom, see how deep it is.
Yep.
I'll sound the bottom, see how deep it is. And I'm completely random with it. I'll set one that's maybe a foot off the bottom and I'll set one a foot below the ice. And I'm taking it easy.
Kind of see what gets bit first. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
I do kind of pay attention to contours and drop-offs and weed lines, but that's just me as a fisherman doing that. And then I walk away and I'm going to cook whatever I'm cooking.
Yep. No. I'm with you. I'm all about it. I think I do. I think this winter's going to be fantastic. I just want to be ready for it because I want to do it. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it right. There's a lot of stuff. I should just mention this real quickly. It's just after 10:30 in the morning, and the November giveaway for Jigs and Bigs is live on our Instagram right now. And just this morning, I had some new prizes get added. So we've got this giveaway features us, obviously. We've got Reaction Tackle, Dark Horse Tackle, of course, Old Glory Outdoors. And between those three right there, we've got just a bevy of baits. We've got Old Glory's got that collection of baits that are like sort of like the greatest hits of everything that's in there. And I had mentioned to you that there's even a little 6 cents tackle bag that's in there as well. So it's great stuff. I know there's a BBZ Rat. I know there's a Whopper Plopper in there. I mean, these are things that Joe has been selling in the shop that are in demand. So this is a great prize. We've got the box from Dark Horse Tackle that we unboxed last week on our Facebook channel and YouTube channel. All those baits go in there. Reaction Tackle is sending over 2 spools of braid and a deluxe bait binder. This is fantastic for organization. You're going to love this. I had a great conversation with Reaction Tackle. They'll be on the show soon. I'll be talking to Chad from Reaction Tackle, and I love this. They've got some really great terminal tackle that I had a conversation with them about, and they're carrying the line out. I'm like blown away that this is actually happening. So details on that once they get the order, because I want to get my order in first. I want right away once they get them in and everything's ready. I want to order these suckers first. But the 2 new additions we have, I mean, good friends of the show. We've got Stretching Lines Anglers Gear is hooking us up with more plastics, which I want to throw this out there. I know, Sean, you're not a big swim bait guy per se, but Damien has been working on these, I think they're 6 or 7 inch soft plastic swim baits, and they are stunning. They are fantastic. He's also got some new drop shot stuff coming. I don't want to say too much, but there happens to be a certain box that it may be included in as well. And he showed me the mold for the drop shot baits, and they look beautiful. And then Hookset Hoodlums, with the buzzer beater, jumped in, and they're just like, "Yep, we're going to put together another bunch of apparel." And I think Braden got a hat, a shirt, and a bunch of stickers from Hookset Hoodlums. So that stuff there. So this prize pack it's kind of blowing up. It's getting good.
Yeah, I picked up the Old Glory stuff the other day, and I saw the rat in there, and I saw the Whopper Plopper's a big one, and it's frog colored, so I like that.
Yeah,
and I know you put the pictures up, anyways. There was, I think, a War Eagle spinnerbait in there.
That's right. He's got War Eagle stuff in there.
And you know what I really looked at, and I was really jealous of that somebody's going to get is the 2 crankbaits that are in there.
Are those 6 cents cranks that he's got in there?
I don't want to be quoted in a court of law, but I think one is, one isn't. But one of them was a square bill in bluegill color, and it's phenomenal. It looks fantastic. So I'm very jealous of whoever gets this.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very, very good. It's funny. I just got a text from Damien over at Stretching Lines right now, and he's putting together a large order of these drop shot baits for this this box. This is pretty cool seeing this stuff happen. Like that's full circle. I think this is so cool.
I've got to reach out to Damien. I've been looking at a couple of his molds online that he's been kind enough. I don't think anybody would find this very mysterious or crazy, but we have a little kind of a family group text that we use. It started with your hot sauce.
The hot sauce thing. Yeah, absolutely.
And somehow that's morphed into, we all kind of keep in touch through that and throw stuff out. And he's been throwing a couple pictures of molds up there that I am particularly interested in and want to ask him a couple questions about, but I'm going to leave that for off air and see what comes of it.
Oh,
but dude. Yeah, he got my attention on a couple of things, and I think you know what they are.
So this is what's in the I never posted this, the stuff that's in the giveaway. I think I'll put this on the story today though. The Old Glory box contains a Berkeley scale. Something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about the scale. Yep.
The Berkeley scale. I think like any angler, like and I mean, I am a convert. I'm taking my measurements via length. But let's be honest here. If you're gonna, like I am, my goal, my end game is replicas. That's my goal. Like I want it with the when I break my PB, I'm all about the replica. You need the weight. You've got to give the weight whatever it measures to give an estimate of what the hell the weight is for this. So that's really important. So every angler should have a scale, no matter what. We've got a 6 Sense Cloud 9 Mini Mag crankbait. We've got the original Steel Shad blade bait. We got a Z-Man Project Z chatterbait, 3/8 ounce.
Yeah, that was in there too. That's a nice. I want to say it's like white and chartreuse. That's a good one. Yeah,
it's a really good one, dude. My Instagram is blowing up right now with people entering here. Specifically, Teddy Forget. Teddy Forget's going ham. Well, we got a Bog Hog. That's a local company, Bog Hog.
Yep.
We've got a Bog Hog lead-free bass jig in there. We've got a Spro BBZ Rat. That's the 30. That's a great size. We've got a War Eagle spinnerbait that you're gonna love. We've got that frog pattern whopper plopper. We've got a 3/8 ounce gridiron jig from Guggen Squad. We've got a Divine hybrid jig, 3/4 ounce from 6 Sense. I've been wanting to play around with those a little bit. And then we've got, this is another company that Joe's been telling me an awful lot about. It's an Arc CT57. That's it's a crankbait. And this company, Arc, just sounds amazing. I know he's got some rods from them as well as a bunch of other baits that they've got in. I mean, all kinds of great stuff. This is. I was a little bit surprised. I was like, we gave away a reel last month, and it felt really good to give away such a high ticket item. But I mean, this is kind of a great way to go. Like, could you imagine springtime, or if you're down south, even fishing through the winter, you've got all this stuff at your disposal now. Enter. That's all you got to do, and it's really, really simple.
Do it. And speaking of Teddy, did you see he got another? I think he got another lake trout.
Big lake trout, yeah, just over the weekend. Yeah, he's killing them. We got to get out. And my goal, and I've said this to a couple of people, my goal is for next spring, every single week, I want to fish with at least one listener for an outing. Make it a point to get out there and go and fish with listeners, and that's a big thing with me. So we got to get out there and fish with Teddy for sure.
I will definitely try. You know what I always think about, like, I do like fishing with people. I really do. But I also like quiet, and also, April, October, I'm in a tournament. So it's not like if I'm fishing, I don't want to be out like having a bullshit conversation about some death metal band from Florida or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
with somebody,
exactly.
which is cool. There's a time and a place for that.
Yep.
But I always go back to when we fished with Todd Grubbs, and we were out on that lake.
Oh, yeah.
I heard you across the lake, and I had vanished. I was going over and trying, because I was in 2 tournaments, and I was across the lake doing my thing.
You had a job to do.
And I think Todd asked you something like, is he pissed off? And you're like, no, Sean's just fucking intense with the fishing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I that's my thing. It's my lifeblood when I do that.
Remember that outing we had the first time out with the Hookset Hoodlum guys and the Lunker lads? We had gone, and it was, I think, the first time we went over to OGO. We were over in Central Mass in that area, and we hit the water, and you got right out there and doing your thing. Like, it's all good. I think everybody kind of understands, that especially when you're in that window, April to October, and there's so many tournaments on the line. You got to get out there and fish. But you're always one of the first ones that's like, hey, let's go grab lunch after this, or let's go do whatever. So those conversations, when we went out with Todd, actually, we ended up doing lunch afterwards. That was a long day. It was a blast. It was a whole lot of fun. So, always good stuff. But
when I'm on the water, it does. I kind of shift gears. Like I'm not social. Like a lot of people talk and bullshit and this and that. Like if I'm on a boat with somebody like with Tim Jacks, like when I went out with Tim on his bass boat, or with Andy and his bass boat, I can fish and bullshit at the same time because generally I'm not in charge of the direction we're going in. Yeah. So I don't have to think about a lot of stuff. I might put my 2 cents in, but I'm not the captain. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm along for the ride. But when I'm in my kayak, it's a different, it's a different.
You're going where you gotta go, and what the plan says, with the
and
things
it's not like
it's
not a stress thing. It's just shifting gears.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's gone from practice to the game, so to speak. No,
that makes absolute sense. Yeah.
So the only other thing,
you don't see boxers in there looking over the line. So like, hey, you want to go get some mozzarella sticks after this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it just doesn't work that way.
Exactly. They're asking about the mozzarella sticks when they're hitting the speed bag in the gym. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, hey, man, I want to go out and go to the bar after this. Okay, whatever. Yeah. But the only other thing I have to add, and this is again one of our another unsolicited plug. So I've mentioned a couple times on the show that I'm a gamer. I do play some video games every now and again. I'm not over the top with being a responsible adult. I actually haven't played any games in a month or two, but we're very lucky enough to have it's now a chain because they have a second location of used secondhand video game stores called State Line Video Games. It's right in our area, right by the Mass Connecticut border. There's one in Mass, there's one in Connecticut now. The one in Massachusetts, and I hope I don't think they'll listen to this, but even if they do, they'll have a laugh. The first time I found out that place was there, my brother and I went to go check the place out. I'm like, okay, let's check this place out and see if there's, what they got for video games. And we get there and there's like a neon open light and there's bars on the windows. And I'm like, this place looks like a porn store. But we went in there and it was not, in fact, a porn, an adult entertainment store. Yeah. It was a video game store. And my God, when we first got there, their selection was fantastic, but it was an older building. They since remodeled it. This is one of the best secondhand video game stores I've ever been in. Now they carry present stuff too, but like when you go to other big chain, there's one big chain video game stores. Yeah, they don't carry generations back. You're not going to find Atari games from the 80s in there. State Line Video Games is not that way. You can go and get there. You can go get pretty much whatever you want. That's pretty cool. So it's the closest thing to the internet, and I'm sure they do their internet auctions and sales and whatnot too. But while I was there the other day, I sold a bunch of video games back that were either doubles or whatever. I get lots from people every now and again. And we just so you know where I'm at, I stay like generations back. I don't buy like a PS5. That's what's out now. I'm not buying a PS5 for probably 10 years. Yeah. I wait to see what a system has, the high points on it. Like when we were kids, when we were buying Nintendo games, we would have an NES, a Nintendo Entertainment System, and you go out and buy a game and it was $50. Yeah. And you didn't know if that game sucked or not. Exactly. And then you were boned $50 on that game. Or you bought the Atari ET game, and then, realizing that these are all going to end up buried in the desert. you never bought that. They killed it before the release, to my understanding. No, it was released. It's terrible. Really? Yeah. Well, I know it's terrible, and I've seen it, but I didn't think there were that many out there. I thought most of them ended up in Nevada. A lot of them are in the desert, and it's that it came out and the initial buzz of this is great, but then it was garbage reviews. I mean, it was bad. I remember playing that game. Yeah. Oh, that's exactly what it was. Angry Video Game Nerd did a whole series on that, and I think he did a movie about it. Just Shenanigans, whatever. But check that out. There's a whole story. It's crazy. I think there's a whole documentary film about it. Yeah. So I try to break that mold where I'm an outdoorsman first, but I do game. You can do it. It's not like. Sometimes you see memes and shit saying, I don't have any memories from this, from video games. And you see, there's a father with his son on the dock. Dude, I've got both. Yeah, exactly. I've got friends that, when you're in the military, if you're in the desert, you might have a game console. You can't go fishing and you can't hunt. That's what you've got to You know what I mean? That's what you got to do with your extra time. Yeah, you got to do it. So I'm a gamer. I was always a gamer. And fishing and hunting coexist in this life. Yep. But anyways, so I went over there and I told you this, and we might have some fun coming up. A lot of sports games are cheap because, like with Madden, for example. Oh, yeah. Well, if you got Madden 98 and Madden 99 comes out, that's a whole new roster. Yep. Oh, my God. And if you've got Madden 2019 and Madden 2020 comes out, that's a whole new roster. So you really don't need Madden 2019 anymore. I keep that stuff because it's kind of like a library. My brother actually called my gaming room a library. I have a room just devoted to it.
Yeah.
And I have hundreds upon hundreds of games. I don't sell them unless they suck. If a game sucks and I don't want to play it, it's gone. Yeah. But if a game's good and it gets an update, I keep both versions because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So, and sometimes there's play aspects of it that work well in older versions, and you just want to mix it up.
Yeah, dude, look at I'm going to throw back for Patriots fans here, all right? One of my favorite football games to play before Madden exploded. Like, it exploded in 97 and 98.
Oh, it did.
But one of the competitors that it had for a few years was Game Day, NFL Game Day. Mm-hmm. It was also licensed. It had all the players. This is pre-Tom Brady. This was Drew Bledsoe manning the helm, right? I love using the Patriots that year. That was the year they lost to Green Bay because you can run fake punts better than any team in the game because you had Tom Tupa, who was a college quarterback. Remember Tom Tupa? The Wiley Tuna, Bill Parcells used to run fake punts with Tom Tupa, probably more than average because the guy could throw.
Yeah.
So in game 97, you've got a quarterback punting for you. You're fake punting every freaking time you have to punt. Oh, 4th and 25. I got Tom Tupa. I got this. Somewhere Tom Tupa is shaking his head listening to this podcast going, who are these assholes? But I still have a copy of Game Day 97 because that's a fun game. And I put a lot of time into playing that game in 1996, 1997. But anyways, I went to State Line Video Games. They had a bunch of their sports games that were like $1 a piece. And I looked through and I found no less than 5 PlayStation 2 and Wii, and I think I got one GameCube one fishing games. So we might have some fun with this one day.
I think that could be a lot of fun.
If it's too cold and too miserable to fish, you and I might be sitting up in the game room figuring this shit out and recording it while we're doing it.
You just gave me a great idea.
Oh God, your head exploded. What happened?
Now, full disclosure here, folks, there are very few sportsman shows going on right now with, COVID and everything. It's not likely a lot of these shows are going to happen. We really were looking forward to locally getting involved with some of these and making an appearance for the podcast and everything else. I have the ability to do this, and I think it could be a lot of fun. As people stop by our booth, we could have one of these video games set up and do like playoffs, have like friends of the show pop in, play.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Play PS2, I think you've got one of the games you have is the Rapala one, right?
I think I've got that for like three. One or let me think of it. I think I have it. I think I have 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. So
I was never an Xbox guy, so the majority of my console systems are either Nintendo or PlayStation based.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
and that's the thing. So yeah, it's like, so we bring a PS2, we set up. I mean, I've got the ability to make it happen. I think it could be kind of fun, and maybe do it as like a, hey, beat the reigning champ or whomever. I think it could be a blast, and then it'd just be something different. When you see like these conventions and things like that, and people are doing these trade shows. The nostalgia is definitely there. I think it's definitely very, very cool. People, come and goof around and talk to you at your booth, and you're like, hey, let's play, do a short tournament here of whatever. Have two YouTubers go head to head, or 2, local, anglers with, Instagram following go head to head or something like that. Maybe make a belt.
I think the best thing, if we're going to do that at once normalcy returns to this country and we can all have group gatherings again, I think the best thing to do would have that TV out. Most of those fishing games are one player.
A lot of them.
So I would think that maybe
like a high score, do a prize.
Yeah. The biggest one, because you don't want somebody sitting in front of that thing all day.
Yeah.
Hogging it. So have one person come up, they catch one fish, and that's just the lunker of the day.
Put them on a board. Yeah.
And put on a little dry erase board and lunkers of the day. And maybe whoever catches the lunker of the day gets some sort of
that's a
prize.
Idea, man. I freaking love this idea.
Why are we brainstorming on the air here? We're giving people ideas.
No, it's fine. All we're doing is, we're just throwing the seeds out there. Let's see if they blossom into something fantastic, wonderful.
You got that explicit label on there. I mean, we've talked about knobs, loose things, seed. We're throwing out. I mean,
distributing seeds,
adult stores. What is going on?
It's true. It's true.
That's all my list, man. That is all I got. We've talked for almost 2 hours?
Yeah, we're just shy of 8 minutes from the 2-hour mark. That's unfriggin' believable.
We can wrap it up. I'm good. Do the outro. Call it a day.
I'm good too. I think that's it. So here's what we're gonna do, folks. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick break. We'll come right back with our interview. This is great. I get to talk with another aircraft carrier owner, the Ascend 128T. We're going to talk modifications. We're going to talk all kinds of good stuff. You guys will love it. Stay tuned. We'll see you in a bit. Alrighty, guys. Bobby Roast Beef here. We are doing an interview here in the beef seat. We have Jenson Essary with us. Interesting. This is a very, very interesting interview because I should say our paths kind of crossed because we're both owners of the Ascend 128T kayak, and he sent me a video of some of the modifications that he's been doing on his, and I was blown away. So I said, we should definitely talk about our 128Ts, and I'll have you on the show. So Jenson, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Can't beat it out here. I'm out here in California today, and I love it. Weather's kind of it's off and on, kind of tears the fishing up a little bit.
I believe it, man. I believe it. We're going through hell over here. I'm up in New England, and we have right now. It's the warmest it's been in the last couple of days. It's 40 degrees, and it's been rough. We've had skim ice on some of the spots I wanted to fish. So not going to be getting out there anytime soon until we have safe ice anyway, and then
that's where that. Man,
absolutely.
That kayak's got to put away for a while, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's already in the basement, ready to be modified. So let's jump in there. Actually, let's talk about kayaks. How long have you had your 128T?
Almost a full year now. It'll be a year on Christmas. Actually,
very nice.
My wife got it for me, and I couldn't have been happier.
That's awesome, man. Is this your first kayak, or how long have you been kayak fishing?
No, so I'm a big guy. I've been fishing out of a Pelican Walmart one, and I noticed that as I was getting bigger, because I had kids and everything.
Oh yeah, man!
It was time for a new kayak for sure.
Yep, absolutely. I could definitely relate, dude. Absolutely. And the nice thing about the 128T is that it is really stable, and it supports a lot. Like you can really pack this thing full. And
yes.
Sure there may be other kayaks that track a little bit better or that might be a little bit faster, but this thing is, I think it's got the nickname the aircraft carrier, and it is like you can move anything with this.
It's a boat for sure.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. So tell me about, I don't have the video necessarily to show all of the mods that you've put in there, but explain a little bit about some of the things that you've done to modify your 128T.
Yeah, so on my 128T, the first thing, there was no doubt in my mind, was I going out there without at least 5 rods. So I had to make a rod holder for everything. I love to just tackle through everything and use different baits and no way. So first thing I did was grab 1 1/4 PVC and made a sweet rod holder, but I wanted to clear that hatch in the back. And actually on that hatch, I actually flipped it around so it could open away from me rather than towards me. It makes such a difference too. I carry a lot of my tackle in there, and then I've added a fish finder, a whole 9 yards. Lowrance actually makes a great mount for your transducer for your scupper hole.
Oh, really?
Highly recommend it. But on the 128T, it was a little short, so you have to have that transducer level. So you got to buy probably about 1 inch by really like fine piece of metal, and make a little jig for it to stick out a little farther. But
gotcha.
Other than that, it works amazing.
No, that's awesome. I've seen some of those transducers before where you just pop it in one of the scupper holes and there you go. You're good to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And mine clears enough too. So if I scrape bottom, my transducer's not hitting.
That's awesome. That's great. That's one thing. There was one time where I was out with my yak, and I had gone over a couple of branches that were submerged, and it hung me up pretty good. I actually had to have a friend of mine kind of like ram me from the side to kind of like move me along. I'm glad he was there. It was rough, but that's the thing I'm always nervous about, and I was always nervous about like scupper holes in general. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking there's holes in this boat. Like this thing's gonna sink, but I didn't realize the mechanics involved. And there's a lot of accessories that you can use using scupper holes. Using them to your advantage. There's one like this anchor spike I considered for shallow water, so I can just drop that right through one of the scuppers and just be pinned in that one spot. You know, there's a lot that you can do. It's funny you mentioned carrying 5 rods because for me that's the magic number. I like to carry 5 rods. I usually carry 4 bait casting combos and a spinning combo with me while I'm out there.
Me too, buddy.
Yep, and I end up filling the built-in rod holders with whatever I'm using least often, and then the other 3 rods just lay out right in front of me. And it sucks when you get a big fish because they're flopping all over your stuff, and that's my goal. I think really is to clean up the deck and make it a little bit better. And I've heard a lot of people do that same mod that you were talking about with the hatch, flipping it over so it opens the other way. I don't really, and it does. It seems very common. It seems a little bit more intuitive for it to be the opposite direction. But so what else have you done to it to change things up?
I added the Yak Attack LEDs in the front. So where those 2 first rod holders are, I have 2 red LEDs right there that are facing towards me. And when I'm at night over here in the we have a California Delta over here. So I'm fishing in the kayak and I'm an early bird. So I'll get there at 3:30 and it still be pitch black outside. And I'll run those lights on with my fish finder and I can, I can see I can tie a knot literally in the darkest of night with those red lights, and it's amazing. Awesome. I turn them off when I'm going to cast and everything. Yep. And actually, recently, I just put the Yak Attack like snap-on rod holders, or not the rod holders, the paddle holders.
Oh yeah.
And I've been using a flashlight at night. I've been clipping it onto that, and it's been holding it really solid. So I've been able to point my flashlight in the right direction I want to make a cast at, so I'm not hitting the toolies or catching wood, you know.
That's a really good idea. That's great. That's a really good idea, man.
Yeah, it's came in clutch a lot of the time, and you always got to have a net aboard because you never know when you're going to get an 8, 9, 10 pounder.
No,
you know?
Absolutely, always a net. I mean, the way I look at it, it's like always got to have a net. You never ever know, you know. Let's talk about how you got started fishing, though. How was it? Explain to me the story of how was it that you were introduced to fishing, and then how did you kind of hone in to where you're focusing on kayak fishing specifically? And I'm making an assumption that you're primarily a bass fisherman.
Yes. Yep. Actually, I'm primarily a bass fisherman, but you catch me on a good striper or catfish bite, I'll be bait fishing all day.
Oh yeah.
Nothing's better than roasting up some catfish and striper if you know what I mean. You know?
Oh yeah, no. You're absolutely right, man. So yeah, how did you get started?
Man, back then, my dad used to take me out a few times for trout fishing, and I used to go, the normal son dad trout fishing experience, and that went really well. And he got sick and tired of tying up all my stuff all the time because I'd break everything off. So
yep, absolutely.
So I started learning all that, and I started going with my buddy Kevin and his grandpa all the time. We'd always go out to there's a little 2 lakes out here called McSwain and McClure, and we'd always go trout fishing there. And then it turned me on to bass fishing. As soon as I got a license, me and my buddies always after high school heading up an hour and a half to the lake, go fish for an hour or 2, and then come back, go to school, do it all over again.
That's awesome.
Now I fish with one of my really good buddy Brian from work, and now I'm always in a bass boat. I mean, it was hectic this year with the whole COVID thing and and stuff like that on the lakes, man. Like I couldn't go out in my kayak. It was just too dangerous. It was way too dangerous with all the wakeboarders, jet skiers.
Too many people out there. Yeah, there were way more people on the water doing all kinds of activities, not just fishing.
Yeah.
But I hear you. You get those. There's a couple of pockets out by where I live where there's no recreational boaters, and we hit those hard this summer. We hit them hard just to stay safe, you know, when you're out on such a small vessel like a kayak or you're a paddle boarder yourself or something like that, you know, it's like you gotta watch it. So no, that's awesome.
100%.
That's awesome.
It's it gets insane. And we just been fishing ever since. And man, this year, honestly, with the whole thing going on, I just been killing it this year. I feel like I've fished as much in so long. The fact that they had I don't know if you guys had a whole quarantine on the lakes and everything, but our quarantine on our lakes, they shut them all down. So the whole time they shut them down, every everywhere there were beds and no one was fishing on them, and it made the fishing just on fire this year.
Oh, I believe it.
So the lakes weren't too pressured, until after that. Then it just caught fire. Everybody was out there, man. It was nuts.
Oh yeah, because the fishing was that good, Yeah, luckily, I mean, they didn't really close anything down for us as far as bodies of water. Some of the other, like the state parks, would close up, so the accessibility got a little bit trickier. Initially, but really, and then there's this one reservoir nearby that it's normally like even way before COVID, like regularly it gets hammered. Like a lot of people fish there, lots of pressure, and they closed that sucker up for the spring. There was no way to get around it, but we had enough options. We were lucky. There are other couple of handfuls of states. I think Michigan was one that where they banned all the use of gas motors on everything, basically to close the boat launches.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was just. I think it was Michigan.
Yeah,
I think I saw something where Fishhook Terry was talking about that, but I'm not 100% sure. He's from that area, but.
I bet you the kayakers are going crazy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you can get a kayak in any kind of a spot, absolutely. And this was the year. So I bought my kayak only this past August, and it was a friend of the show who had contacted me and said, look, he had bought a bass boat and was thinking he was still going to use the kayak, and he's like, it's been about a year and it's just been sitting, so you can use it. I'll sell it. Sell it to you. You'll make good use of it. It won't be sitting around in my yard. And I looked high and low for about 2.5 months for a kayak beforehand and couldn't dig up anything. Even if I wanted to buy brand new, there was no stock. So
yeah, it was ridiculous.
This has been an amazing year for people getting outdoors, but also for retailers as far as being able to, move these. It's absolutely bananas. Although I got a friend of mine who I keep telling, he needs to jump on board. We've been saying all the time we need to get off the bank, and he just needs to jump off and do it. And I told him, I said, now's the time. So many people bought kayaks right now.
Yes.
They all bought kayaks, and the folks that aren't going to stick with it, they're all going to be selling them right now in the winter. Now's the time to buy a used one and get a great deal,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
You can't beat a kayak. I mean, I know fishing in a boat is definitely luxurious.
Yep.
Definitely the luxury of that for sure. But fishing in a kayak, when you actually have a good bite going, there's nothing better than fighting it that close to the water.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like it connects you that much more to your environment. Plus, you can get into some spots that it's tough to just get into with a boat or that aren't accessible by the bank, So if you're at a spot that doesn't 100%. Have a launch, there's definitely advantages. I think you got to kind of work at both. Have you, one of the things, the very first thing I plan on modifying is my seat. It's a drop-in style seat, or I think they call it like a stadium style seat. But it doesn't lock into place at all. And I had a situation where I went to go get in the kayak, and I actually tipped the seat backwards, and I was laying on my back. Did you hear that on the show? It was awful. Have you?
Wow.
I've seen some mods. Have you run into that at all, or have you done anything to?
I have not. So on the bottom of your seat, do you have that rubber band that goes into like a square and ties off to the front?
Yep, I thought about that.
Okay, so I wrap, and it goes through the two eyelets in the back of the seat.
Yep.
Okay, so I wrap that around each one time, and then I set it in there. But on the ends of the seat, I have also put like the scratch chair stops, the non-scratch chair stops, the rubber ones.
Yeah.
So I got the smaller ones and I put them in there. They were a little big at first, so I grabbed my grinder and I sanded the sides, and then it fits snug. So there's no real play in that unless you really lean back, and then that's when it wants to go on you. But that extra hold from that bungee, and also those chair stops, it's 100% way better than what it was before. I also did change the hardware on the seat as well too, because a lot of it likes to come loose. Especially, I changed all their square aluminum nuts under all the lids and everything. I changed those to nice silicone bolts that the self-locking ones. So those work well. I changed all out everything to stainless. I don't really trust their bolts and stuff. So
the hardware they're using
for sure.
Yeah, that makes
absolutely.
sense. That makes sense, man. I definitely get that. Now, as far as fishing, what types of bodies of water do you prefer when you're out there? Are you more of a smaller pond guy? Are you looking for larger bodies of water that you can break down over time and gives you a little bit more options? Or are you one of those anglers that's like it's absolutely needs to have current?
So I have over here. I have all of those. So it's it's awesome. So I fish during the summertime when the rivers are running a little low and you could walk them there's current. Man, there's nothing better than fighting a large. Just fighting big fish in the river, and it's just a rush, you know. And then from there, going on to like our delta scene where we have current and we have peaks of the water coming in and out, and it's just that changes a lot too because you're hitting different breaks, different points, you know, and your bite could be on or it could be off within the matter of an hour to 10 minutes, you know, so that changes a lot. But our lakes are really steep and we have a lot of, basically they're like huge, I would say like man-made quarries, you know.
They're gotcha.
Just like super deep, steep banks and working a jig a lot on the rocks, drop shot, stuff like that. There's some flats, but honestly, man, I would prefer the lakes for sure. The rocky, steep banks, and then nothing better than throwing a Cinco and letting it slow fall and getting that bite.
Oh, yeah.
And just hammering down, you know.
That's the way to do it. So we're talking baits. What's your primary, like, give me like your top 3 confidence baits. What are you generally throwing that you believe in?
What I believe in? Definitely probably medium diving crankbait.
All right.
Yeah, because you could work those all year round and catch fish.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt. And I love a good jig, a good half-ounce jig. You could throw a half-ounce jig year round. Nothing better than that.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
then also white spinnerbait.
White spinnerbait is a home run all the time. I'm not much.
White spinnerbait.
Yeah, I'm not much of a fisherman when it comes to spinnerbait fishing, but that is an absolute, like, I've got a handful of different sizes, and I've got white in everyone. It's just so versatile, you know.
Oh,
it's like a must-have. Even
white
over
with
white.
The red eyes.
Yeah.
Oh man, 2 Alabama blades, like nothing better than that right there.
Yeah.
Just smokes them all day, half-ounce. It's perfect.
Yeah. I just got a spinnerbait recently. I think it was from Dobbins. And it's a half-ounce white spinnerbait, big old willow blades on there. I mean, huge. Probably the biggest blades of any individual spinnerbait that I've had. I've had no hookups on it, but man, it's just like a rock. It's unbelievable. Now let's talk as far as combos. You said that you generally like to take 5 out with you. Walk me through your arsenal. Like, what are you rigging up? Like, as far as line on which combo, and what are you using to throw on?
You know, oh, absolutely. So right now, winter time's coming. I'm switching it all. I'm switching out all my line because I didn't do too good last weekend. So I learned a little something.
All right.
I'm probably gonna switch down. I got 12-pound line on my cranking rod. I'm probably gonna switch down to 10 or an 8.
Yep.
Just so I can get that extra deep, extra dive because we're probably pushing fish that are suspended at 60 to 80 to even to 100 feet right now.
Oh, really?
Wow, our water's
crazy deep.
Oh yeah. Our reservoirs, man, are just they drop and it's crazy. Definitely. Oh, I have all Lew's reels. I am religious to Lew's.
Yep.
Lew's is by far my favorite brand of reels. I've had Shimano's, but I just don't like that kind of money to be spent on such a reel when you could get Lew's makes great quality reels for a great price.
Yeah.
And man, definitely cranking for sure. I have another one where I always either have just a weightless Cinco or I'll even use a Ned head with the Cinco on it, like a Ned rig. The Ned rig style hooks.
Yeah.
And I'd also use those. because those you can work on the bottom as well. It gives it a little bit more action, lets it fall a little bit deeper, a little faster, you know?
Oh, I hear you.
And that works well too, because you have to change it up. And I have 15-pound braid tied onto an 8-pound mono leader.
Yep.
About 4 foot. Absolutely.
Okay. Very
Oh
good.
man. Yes. And then right now I have 2 braided rods because I was fishing the Delta. I have a braid on my spinnerbait rod tied to a 15-pound leader on mono as well that I have to change out, that I'm probably going to put probably at least 12-pound on and keep either more beefier style crankbait on, or maybe even another worm, and I can throw like a shaky head or something else on it.
Nice. Very nice. Awesome, man. Well, I've got kind of last question for tonight. It's actually a two-parter. So first, I want you to tell me the story of like either the catch or the experience out on the water that you're most proud of. You know, the thing that you're most like, yeah, this is the one thing you want to tell people about that's happened on the water, whatever that story is. Share that with me. And then on the other side of it, I need you to share with me the story that's the biggest that's happened to you on the water. Kayak, boat, bank fishing, doesn't matter.
Absolutely. So my first greatest experience was this year by far. Me and my buddy Brian were out on his boat, and I had this. It was dead summer. Water was peaking at like 88 degrees. It was probably 103 out, and we're just burning crankbaits. And I decided to change it up to an orange little bomber, and I threw it up on the bank, and I saw this fish take it, and I wasn't sure because I've been playing with my buddy all day.
Yep.
And I'm like, grab the net. And it was, oh man, it was crazy. As soon as that fish jumped out of the water, he's like, you don't need the net. Oh, you need the net.
That's the greatest.
And so he rushed to grab the net, got this fish, and this fish was about probably 24, 25 inches long, but super old, very old. Eyes were popped out. Mouth was so I could fit my whole mouth or my whole fist in her mouth. And but really skinny. The fish was only 5.4 pounds, but it was just a catch of a lifetime because of it was my biggest bucket mouth I've ever caught. If that fish was full, it was pushing nowhere. Man, probably pushing 8, 9, you know, and it was but still, it was amazing. Took a quick picture, put the fish back in, and that was probably my greatest memory of fishing so far.
That's awesome, man.
My worst, I got this new power rod. It was 7.3 medium heavy, and I was ready to use it.
Oh yeah.
My first cast, I snapped it right in half.
First cast?
First cast with it, broke it right in half. Was a dummy and young at the time, didn't get the warranty. Bit the bullet. Later that day, we're on the same river, and I kicked my buddy's spinnerbait rod in the water. And
my God.
and that was gone. So that was a rough day.
Yeah, that's a twofer right there. Damn. Oh, my goodness. That sucks, dude. Well, hey, Jenson, go ahead and take this opportunity to kind of let people know where they can catch up with you on social media. If you have anything going on online, opportunity to promote yourself a little bit, have at it.
Yeah, just follow me. I just post pictures of me and my family camping, doing all that at Just Real Fishing. It's just JUSTREELFISHN, Just Real Fishing. Thanks, guys. I appreciate everything. Thank you for having me on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, glad to have you on, dude. Once you sent that video, I was like, I got to get this guy on to talk about the 128T. I've got to.
Hey, man, that's what people got to do in the fishing community. You know, I saw that you got it, and I was like, well, here's what I did. You know, maybe you could bounce off that like I did with somebody else. But I just made it my own, you know, so. That's
exactly it. You know, you take somebody has a great idea, you riff, and you make it whatever is going to fit you for whatever it is that you're doing. That's awesome, man. Well, Jenson, thanks so much, buddy. We will we'll catch up with you. Take care, all righty?
Absolutely. I'll see you guys later.
Have a good one, man.
You too. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Oh, you too. See ya.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye. All righty, everybody. That about wraps it up for us. This was an all-over-the-place kind of show, but a very, very, very high-quality show, as we normally try to put together for you folks that tune in and listen. Big shout-out to everybody that has been leaving some reviews, some info over at Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate that. Numbers have been really, really good, and we're clearly growing as far as the listenership of the show. That is amazing. Contest underway currently. Go ahead and visit our Instagram at Jigs and Bigs. Give us a follow, or follow all those other pages that we're associated with here, and tag a friend in the comments. Go ahead and you can enter as many times as you would like, and win yourself some great stuff from some amazing partners that are working with us alongside with this monthly giveaway. So good stuff, great stuff coming up for the month of December. Sean, you got anything you want to jump in here with?
I just want to tell everyone that's listening to have a happy Thanksgiving and safe Thanksgiving. And, we're dealing with some shit in this country. Try to be safe and smart about this whole thing.
Yep.
And, the sooner we're all safer and smarter, the sooner we're back to some sort of normalcy. And that's it. Everyone have a good holiday.
Absolutely, everybody. Take good care of yourselves, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. We will see you in a week. You know how we do. Tight lines. It's another good one in you. Yeah, another good one in you. 3.
You want to start over, butthole? And bibbity bobbity boo! We do a podcast, motherfuckers. You want to put that at the end?
I think I do. I do. Actually.
No, we don't. We don't have. We can save that for a rainy day.
3, 2.